Good morning.
Okay, good morning, Prof. You're welcome.
Good morning. Yes. Let me just check. Let me see when I can share my slides.
Okay, Prof. Okay, I will make you a co-host
Okay.
now.
Okay. Have you made me a course now? Hello? Have you made me a co-host? Can you see my slides?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, just one second. Let me make it. You can see it is full, yeah? Okay, so let's have some listener. So let me go and have a cup of tea, and then let me go and do a cup of tea for myself, and then we'll start in 5 minutes. So you can hear me clearly. You can see my slide. So we're good to go.
Yeah. The dean should be recognizing those of us who sacrificed to be here 40 minutes before time.
I can't replace that. I'm sorry.
I'm raising that so that when Professor Rekosima comes, we just go straight to business.
I'm here now. Rekosima is here.
Yeah, you need a cup of tea. Me, I have had coffee, so you need your tea.
So you've had coffee now, so let me go and have tea myself.
Approved.
Okay, sir. No problem at all. Yeah.
Thank you, the Dean. Their email should be in the registration. Their phone number, email is in the registration. So we'll just need them to name their devices. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it is 9:30, and that's our starting time. So then I guess we can start.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We are hearing. We are hearing.
So I welcome everybody to this medical education workshop. The first in a long while. We've had this several years ago. We're having it again, and it is designed to help us improve our capacity and develop ourselves as medical educators in the country and in the nation, and especially in our faculty and university. It's going to be a 3 days event, and we're glad to have members of the university, the college, and the faculty here, and other faculty members. We're starting today, and we'll be looking at assessment for learning, mentorship, and feedback in medical education. I would not want to bore or waste our time. I would like to invite the dean of the faculty so that he can give us the opening remarks. Then from there, we'll listen to the vice chancellor and the provost. Dean, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I welcome all our participants to this very beautiful workshop. I thank particularly the Dean of Medicine, Professor Ike Mbachu, for making this possible, and your team in the Dean's office, the organizing committee, our lecturers who have made this sacrifice of time, intellect, and other members of the faculty, then the attendants. Unfortunately, barely maybe half an hour ago, the VC who had planned to be here, with us all through, had a sudden need to hand over, the chairing and the speech to this workshop to me. And he's very sorry, but it's an emergency and he couldn't cope with it. So he has directed that I represent him and I present his speech, which is the opening address. So I'm talking now on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, and I believe that once he has spoken, his address will equally encompass my own address because we are working together and I'm representing him at this event. The opening address by the Vice Chancellor, I've actually sent it to the Dean and the Sub-Dean's WhatsApp handles. So if you could access it, you can actually blast it on this, or else I could read it verbatim the way he put it. Opening address by the Vice Chancellor, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka, Professor Gochukwu Bond Anyehe, at the opening ceremony of the 3-day workshop on medical education organized by the Faculty of Medicine, College of Health Sciences, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Nnewi campus, which is being held from 22nd to the 24th of June, 2026. Protocol duly observed. Distinguished colleagues, esteemed facilitators and faculty, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you to this timely 3-day workshop on medical education, commencing today virtually and concluding physically on Wednesday at the Igbo Orizu ICT Center at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital permanent site, Nnewi. Medical education is the bedrock of our healthcare system. Today, emerging disease patterns, rapid technological advancements, and shifting societal expectations demand that we fundamentally rethink how we train future doctors. This workshop provides a vital platform to interrogate our curricula, embrace innovative teaching methodologies, and align our training with global standards, global best practices, without losing our local content. To our virtual facilitators, I thank you for sharing your expertise to help produce medical graduates who are academically sound, clinically competent, ethically grounded, and socially responsive. Now, to our participants, I charge you to engage fully. Let these 3 days go beyond passive lectures and translate into visible, continuous reforms in our lecture halls, in our skills laboratories, and our clinical hospital postings. Unizik, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, remains unyielding in its commitment to medical excellence, building an innovation-driven ecosystem through infrastructure like the Igwe Orizu ICT Center, where we are going to have the physical conclusive part of the workshop, which are consistent faculty development and global partnerships. Looking ahead, I expect a clear, actionable communique with concrete recommendations by June 24th, as this workshop comes to an end. University management will thoroughly study the outcomes and work hand in hand with the college leadership in I highly commend the Dean of Faculty of Medicine, the Provost of the College of Health Sciences, and the Planning Committee for executing this hybrid delivery model under the core Unizik spirit of discipline and excellence. With these remarks, I now declare the 3-day workshop on medical education officially open.
Let's put our hands together for the Vice Chancellor, represented by the Provost of the College of Health Sciences, Professor Kesemedru.
May your Vice Chancellor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the workshop is
So
open
thank you
for us.
and God bless us. Yes.
Thank you, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Bond Anyehi, for that opening speech and then declared workshop opening. Thank you, the Provost, who also spoke on his behalf and on behalf of the Provost himself. I welcome again all of us, and I want to recognize the Vice Chancellor, Professor Bond Anyehi, and the Provost of College of Sciences of DKC Mejulu, and also the Dean of Medicine, Professor Ike Tumbachu, and likewise the Dean of Basic Clinical Sciences, Professor Kajetan Ilo, for being here, and all our leaders, the past provost, Professor Gerard Udigwe, and then our internal council members, Professor Victor Nyora, our past deans who are here, Professor Glad Ahaneku, you're all welcome. With me in this meeting is Dr. Tito Murezede, who will be our timekeeper and then direct us when to start, when to stop. Before I call upon our guest lecturer and teacher today, I would like to also establish some protocol or some order for the house. There will be time for questions and comments after each section or this lecture. We could make do with the versions I just left. We could make do with our chat box. You can put our questions there at the end, which I will read it out to him. But if you must learn how to speak, we will know if you have time to give space to speak in between the lecture or at the end of the lectures. The lectures promise to be quite interesting and escalating. I can assure you about that. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our guest lecturer, who has been here with us all the way from Manchester in the United Kingdom. Our guest lecturer is Professor E.B. Erikosima. Prof, you can say hello to us. You can say hello to us, Prof.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Now, Professor E.B. Erikosima holds a Bachelor of Medical Science in Anatomy. He's an MBBS holder and holds also a Master's in Medical Science in Nephrology. He holds a postgraduate certificate in medical education and is a member of the Royal College of both London and Edinburgh of Physicians. He's also a member of West African College of Physicians. Professor Erikosima is a senior fellow in Higher Education Academy of the United Kingdom. He's also a member of the Academy of Medical Educators of the United Kingdom. He is a consultant renal physician at the Salford Royal Hospital, Manchester. He is and has been a visiting professor of medicine and medical education at the University of Port Harcourt, also at David Umahi Federal University of Health Sciences, Uburu, in Ebonyi State, and also at the University of Manchester. Director of Program in Specialist Training at North Care Alliance, NHS Trust. He's also an academic lead for undergraduate training and learning at the University of Manchester Medical School. We can say so much about him. I also add that he is also a teacher of mine, my teacher. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like us to welcome Professor E.B. Erikosima. Can we give him a clapping ovation? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Dr. Onrietede will tell us the timeline for this lecture, which will be on assessment for learning and competence in medical education. Dr. Onrietede, can you give us the timeline?
Good morning, everyone. I don't know whether I can be heard. Good morning.
You are clear.
Okay.
We're hearing
So
you.
looking at the thank you very much. So looking at the timeline, we'll be taking the first lecture titled Assessment for Learning and Competence in Medical Education by Professor E.B. Erikosima. This lecture will start by 10 a.m. So I guess we're on time, and it will end 10:50 a.m. So you're welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for your kind introduction. I'm very privileged to be part of this workshop, and all protocols observed. The Vice Chancellor, the Provost of the College, and the Dean of the Faculty, and the committee who invited me to come and give this series of lectures. I just want to greatly indulge in that there are 3 lectures I'm going to give. The first one is it's not going to take more than 45 minutes, but the second one is very important. That is OSCE, which might take up to an hour. But I noticed from the timeline that it was reduced. So I will make up for that since we're starting on time. So that one is very important because I've noticed that is a very big challenge in terms of organizing OSCEs. And the other one, which is feedbacks and mentoring, will be much briefer. So I do recognize that most of you are very senior people here, professors, readers, lecturers. So I'm not coming to reinvent the wheel. I just want you to reflect on what you're doing and see whether you can do it differently. Because I've been in medical education for more than a decade in the UK. So I shifted a bit to medical education. I'm a nephrologist by training. I've done a lot of work both here in Africa. But medical education is very dear to my heart, and I've done that for many years. And because of that, I had to get a certification. And so just to give a brief about, I come from the University of Manchester, and it's the biggest medical school in the UK. We have close to 2,000 students. And we have 4 hospital sites. Our hospital is one of the sites. It's not the same like the Nigeria, where university has a particular hospital, but we have 4 hospitals around the Northwest that supports the clinical training of our students. And I work for Suffolk Royal Hospital in Manchester. So just to give you an outline, I just want to remind ourselves of what are the principles of adult learning. And because we need to understand that most of the students we're teaching now are adults. And so that's different from teaching a child. I went to medical school in Nigeria. I did my residency there before I immigrated to the UK for postgraduate training, and then the rest is history. So it's good for us to understand this, because the way we're taught is just assumed that that's the case. So I just want to take you back there. What does it mean when you train doctors? What does that mean? What does medical training entail? So I want to give you this. This is from the General Medical Council, Graduate Medical Outcomes. So first of all, in our mind, we're training the doctor as a scholar and a scientist. And most of you have done brilliant things. Actually published countless numbers of papers in peer-reviewed, high-profile journals. And then we train doctors as practitioners. And so that's why we have good doctors who are looking after our patients. And then one doctor as a professional. Now, 3 of these domains have equal rating. It's not the same with doctor as a practitioner. When you can diagnose and manage clinical conditions, means that you are the most excellent doctor. But if you're not professional about it, then you'll be classed as a bad doctor. In fact, I examine in PLAB, most of the problems Nigerian doctors have in the UK, it's not because they don't have the knowledge to treat patients. It's because of their professional attitudes. We have a number of cases, because I am the chairman of the Medical Association of Nigerian Doctors in the UK, the chairman of the Education Committee. And we have a lot of cases brought to us of unprofessional behavior of Nigerian colleagues. And so that's a big problem. And your assessment should reflect that. Doctor as a scholar and a scientist, doctor as a practitioner, and doctor as a professional. So why is this important in 2026? Because each of the features are as important as the other. And students who graduate must be proficient in 3 things: knowledge, skills, and fitness to practice. We can't train the doctor with knowledge and skills without he's not being fit to practice because of his attitude. So that's something that I want you to think about as we go through this workshop. We all went through the routine. I mean, most of it in my own age group, because I'm in my 60s now. Who finished medical school in the 80s, in the mid 80s, and all that. And so we are used to the old system. But I want to just say that traditionally, just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it was a very, very good idea. Of course, we are all good doctors. I mean, we have all excelled in our fields. But probably it's our individual efforts and things. And some of it, of course, we have the knowledge and skills, the way we were trained. But when I came to the UK and started practicing, I struggled a bit with my own professionalism because there were certain things that I just thought that were very strange. But I came to realize that they were very good for patient care and patient safety. So why is it different now? If you look at when we trained, I mean, some of us who are older, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to downplay age here, but I'm just saying that there is technology now. Everybody has a smartphone. Look at me, I'm 3,000 miles away, but I'm teaching, in a very, and everyone can hear me, can see my slides and all that. This was not there 40 years ago. So the rate of new medical knowledge is astronomical. If you just press a button on Google search, or even in fact with the advent of AI, it's even gone crazy. And then more importantly, we have millennial learners. I mean, when I trained, there was no phone, there was no mobile phone. So they all have mobile phones, they all have smartphones. And now patients are more aware because there's a lot of information on the internet highway. And then the ethics of practice from patients and accountability. There's more accountability now than before. Even in the UK, 30 years ago, the doctor was like the headmaster. But now that era is gone. Everybody's accountable because as a consultant, the patient ends on your table, which is still the case, I suppose. And you must be accountable. It's not due to your registrar or your SHO or somebody else. It's you that will be hammered if something goes wrong. So you need to train these people properly. So this slide is just to show the changes that have taken place. There are changes in regulations now. Societal expectations is increased. Shorter in the UK now. There's shorter time for training because of people have been heard on the news where doctors even in the UK are striking because of economic needs and where they've been. I mean, good conditions of service, which I've been following too in Nigeria, where there has been a lot of kind of in a nonchalant attitude of government to the plight of doctors, leading to the JAPA syndrome and all that. So there are changes in technology, which I've alluded to before, changes in learning, which there's a paradigm shift. And I was very glad when the VC in his opening address mentioned this issue about paradigm shift in learning styles from more traditional didactic lectures and book learning to more web-based interactive learning. And that's what is going on now. So we need to be very realistic with today's world in 2026. So how do we adjust to this new situation? I know I've had a lot of conversations with colleagues in Nigeria because I travel abroad 4 times a year to do some teaching and training and all that. In fact, I'll be in Ebonyi State in April sometime in July, to do some teaching. So learning should be student-centered, not teacher-centered. I didn't get that until I went into medical education. Work with the strengths of the millennial. We should work with our strengths of our trainees, not that we got to talk them down. The curriculum needs to be deliberate and planned and encourage and maximize active learning. But we must embed quality assurance and assessment. And we should bring a culture of feedback and evaluation of the way we teach, the way we assess our students or trainees. Because without the two, you cannot have a benchmark for improvement. So I just want to go through this very quickly. This pedagogy refers to the art and science of educating children through a focused approach, but pedagogy is about adult learning. Historically, in undergraduate medical education, it's a combination of both. But pedagogy is just the science of learning in essence. So I just want to let you know, Malcolm knows who is not a doctor, is an educationalist. He says that creation of effective learning environment is important for adult learning. Feel free to express themselves without judgment or ridicule. Learners should be involved in planning of the methods of curriculum direction. I don't know whether you involve your students in the representative in the curriculum review and mapping to the learning outcomes or learning objectives. They should be involved in identifying learning needs, and learners should be encouraged to take the control of their learning, which is self-directed learning in the university. University is supposed to be self-directed learning, but we need to create an environment where these learners will feel that way. So this is just an example of the way adults learn, which is problem-oriented, have an experience, internally motivated, ready to learn, and self-directed learning. So that is just in a nutshell what it is. But there are other concepts in adult learning, which is behaviorism, which is traditional teaching style learning. This is teacher-centered. So those are some of the things that there's a paradigm shift from this. You have constructivism, which is learning through experience and reflection, which is what we should be thinking about. Social constructivism, which is teacher-guided but student-centered learning. And libertarianism, which is student-centered and teacher and learner collaboration. So you can see that if I'm sure most of these concepts resonate with you in your own experience as a teacher. So I just want to bring Maslow's 4 stages of learning. Please pardon me that I need to put this background before we begin to progress to talk about the things we do, which is assessment. So if we are training a student, they come in year 1. So we are looking at Maslow, who is also an educationist. Say that somebody comes with unconscious incompetence. They're briefly ignorance, or they no, they don't know anything. Possibly false, sometimes, but just present with false confidence. And then the conscious incompetence, which is learning of aware of the incompetence, mistakes are frequently made in that state. And then we have a conscious competence. This stage requires concentration to carry out a task effectively. And the unconscious competence, which is the fluent automatic. So just think of yourself. I'm sure most of all of you have cars. When you're changing from gear, although now we have automatic cars, when you put a signal, you don't think first and look at the signal knob to say that, oh, what am I doing? Is it right or left? It goes automatically. When you're changing gear, for those that have manual, you change the gears automatically. You don't even look at the gearbox. Oh, where is it? Where is gear 1? Where is gear 2? You just put it automatically because that is the way you've learned. So just think of that learning how to drive. So this brings us to Bloom's taxonomy of learning domains, and this is what we've been doing. We give MCQ, we give written exams, and then MCQ, essay, short answer questions, survivor, VOC, and all that. So what we're trying to do, there are things that we're trying to establish: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So it's a pyramid. So you go from below to the experts who creates and all that. So these are the things that we should bear in mind. That's the way the learning, whether you're in medicine or in whatever profession a person is. And this brings us to the club's learning cycle of David Club, which talks about concrete experience, having an experience, reflective observation, review, reflecting on the experience, abstract and active experimentation. So this is all the background of learning, what is adult learning. And then that brings me to the meat of this subject, which is what is assessment in undergraduate medical education. So I've understood the learning concepts. We should be able to know that assessment is a tool for learning. I think most times we get that wrong, that we think that assessment is just moving from one stage to the other. It's a massive tool for learning. So the main purpose of assessment in undergraduate medical education is to see if important concepts Key objectives of the module, subject to posting, are understood and assimilated by majority of students through standardized testing. So we're going to talk about this in subsequent slides and in the other talks. So this is what the General Medical Council UK says about assessment. They said, what is assessment in undergraduate medical training? I apologize that I'm using the UK experience because that's where I work and we're regulated by the United Kingdom. Although I still keep my license in Nigeria. But this is what it says. A generalizable assessment is one where candidate scores are not influenced by specific circumstances such as variability in the exam, conditions, or examiners. Please, if you can't take anything of the, please can you take this? Because this is something that we're very, very, very serious about. Yeah, and for those that are involved in assessing either students or trainees in postgraduate exams. In fact, yesterday I was in the MRCP clinical exam, Saturday and Sunday, some of the exams on weekends. So I was there and it was so rigorous for me as an examiner because you need to be not non-conscious bias. All those things you need to knock them off. God, the way it is structured, and you are accountable as an examiner. So what assessment is not? It's to deliberately undermine a student's vulnerability, intentionally make the exam hard or complex, in which the idea of learning is put at the back burner. Unable to distinguish the different types of learners, you should be able to set an exam that should be able to say, who are these are good candidates, these are satisfactory candidates, these are borderline candidates, and these are candidates that need support because they failed the exam. To satisfy the examiner's ego or look tough. I remember when I was in medical school, that was what was going on. Consultants want to feel tough and they want to boost their egos. Deliberate bias and punishment of candidates. This is not what assessment is. So in 2015, the GMC brought out this because there was this idea. Some consultants are very rude and very, very cantankerous with students, so and trainees. So they brought this building a supportive environment. A review to tackle undermining and bullying in medical education and training. They brought this out. So if you're caught as a consultant bullying, you're in trouble. So it is not a hospital problem. It's going to be a General Medical Council problem. So I brought this cartoon just to understand that for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. You could see an elephant there, you could see a monkey there, you could see a pigeon there, a penguin, you could see a fish and a seal and a dog. So they should climb that tree. Of course, this is not a fair exercise. And that's what I'm trying to say to you, that we need to make our exams very fair so that it's quality assured properly for you to have that evidence of fairness. So what are the principles behind the assessments now? Assessments will be fit for purpose that is valid, reliable, generalizable, feasible, and fair. Students should receive timely and accurate guidance about assessments, assessment format, length, range of content, marking schedule, and contribution, how it contributes to the overall grade. So examiners and assessors should be appropriately selected, trained, supported, and appraised. Last Thursday, I also examined in the General Medical Council for PLAB, and I had a 6 hours training, retraining, because every 3 years our training expires and they retrain us again. 6 hours from 8:30 to 4 o'clock, more than 6 hours in fact. So that's how they take these things very seriously, and and so you must show that you're engaging with that training exercise before you will be given opportunity to examine in PLAB. So why are we assessing? Now, if you look at this is Miller's pyramid. Miller brought this out in the 90s. What are we assessing? Miller's prism of clinical competence. It only does the triangle that the doctor truly performs. So if you look at it, you look at nose are factual, and so you need to assess that with with MCQs, essays, and viva voce. Although we don't do viva voces and essays here in our medical school, we do only MCQs and we do best of 5. So, but where is more interesting here is the shows. That's where we have simulations in Oxley, which you have to demonstrate learning. Now, going forward, what we also do with students is that we do what we call workplace-based assessment. And so they have their logbooks, they'll be observed, you see how they put up a line, and, although you can also do that during your case and all that, which I will come to in the next talk. So what are the different types of assessment? We have assessment for learning, which is a formative assessment, which people call continuous assessment. There is assessment of learning and assessment as learning. So they're all different and they all achieve different things. So assessment for learning is formative assessment. So what is it? It's a process. It's not a one-time. It's planned using evidence to make instructional adjustment to verify learning, give students feedback that is turned into their actions for learning. So it is not unplanned. It's not about the grades, but I know that continuous assessment contributes to the final grade. But your aim is to ensure that that the subject is understood properly. So what is summative, which is assessment of learning? So just know the difference. This is assessment for learning, and this is assessment of learning, which is a summative assessment. And that's what we do end of posting exams, or the penultimate end of medicine, end of surgery, end of ONG or pediatrics, end of pathology exam and all that. So those are the parts of evaluating what the student has learned at the end of a given period. That's assessment of learning. So if you look at it too, we have you can see 2 of them overlap, and that's why I was saying that there's a mixture, there's a hybrid of the 2 of them in some settings, in some universities. Like what you do, control assessment contributes to the end of year, end of posting, that is end of particular year exam and all that. So you should know the both differences, and both of them achieve something different. For example, if you look at the purpose of formative assessment, it monitors progress and provides feedback on the student. So the purpose is that it measures overall performance and understanding. That's the end one. So for learning, it is very crucial that both of them are very important, but the formative is very, very important. So formative assessment is to improve learning, summative assessment is to grade students. Assessment as learning is when you encourage peer assessment, student to student. That's the self-assessment by self-directed learning or peer assessment. So how do we design a good assessment then? So you can see good assessment in the middle. You have teaching and learning activity, identify learning outcomes, and assessment criteria. So this is what we call constructive alignment, where your assessment is mapping your assessment onto the curriculum. So assessment, if for it to be useful, it has to be valid, reliable, it has an educational impact which can be measured, acceptability and feasibility. So the impact of that exam can be measured, and there are tools to measure in this day and age with different computer programs. And so the final thing we do, as all of us here, is to get a doctor to be trained properly. So examine and treat patients and look after patients professionally, and also do research in science, and that's why I say doctor as a scientist, doctor as a practitioner, and doctor as a professional. And that should be our goal. And so this is in essence what competency-led training is. Those 3 domains are so important. And in your OSCE or in your exams, clinical exams, those things will be reflected. In your MCQ, those things will be reflected in terms of the way you design your questions. Doctor as a scientist, doctor as a practitioner, and doctor as a professional. So what are the key points here? Now, firstly, assessment has a powerful positive steering effect on learning and the curriculum. And that's why there's revision of curriculum, because there's quality assurance. So assessment should be purpose-driven. Don't do assessment because you want to grade. But there should be a learning component to it. There should be a huge learning component to it. So what has happened? Has it mapped the curriculum? Is assessment mapping the learning outcomes, which is linked to the curriculum? So assessment and evaluation are crucial parts of the education process, and that's what we should be aware of. And then finally, a good assessment process in medical education should be reliable, valid, feasible, and fair. Like I said in one of the slides, assessment is not about robbing an examiner or a teacher's ego or putting the students who are vulnerable at risk or bullying. Assessment is about learning. And it's a tool for learning. So this is just a background to why the way assessments in medical education. So in conclusion, assessment is a powerful driver for student learning. I hope I've convinced you on that. Assessment tools should be geared towards student achievement and learning, not talk down the student. Any reforms in curriculum and teaching methods must consider the role of assessment in the learning process. And this brings to the final point where this emphasizes the need for staff development in medical education, which you're doing now. To be aware, we all super specialists in our different fields. But the question is that, do I know how to deliver learning? Because learning is different now in 2026. Because like I demonstrated that we're dealing with millennial learners, we're dealing with there's technology now. We're more accountable now because people are aware. They can go onto the internet, they can search anything on YouTube, they can search anything. And so we should be prepared for that. And so the last point is so important, that the need for staff development in medical education, which will enhance systematic knowledge about assessment and evaluation. I've done this for a couple of universities. I've been in terms of medical education. In fact, I spoke with Professor Obiegu yesterday, and we're just talking about how can we put this more meat into this nationally by setting up a National Association of Medical Educators. So the individual reflection I wanted to have through this workshop this morning is, what have you gained from it today? Because all of you are leaders. I mean, you manage education, you show leadership and management in education. So what are you going to do as a consequence? But remember, you can change the future. And one of the things that made me when we go into medical education, because these are the people who will treat me, doctors, specialists are going to be able to treat me when I'm older. So are they going to be competent? And so that's what we need to ask ourselves. And what is emphasis now is competency-led training. It's not just exams passing. So I just want you to have that individual reflection. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that interesting eye-opener, brief, precise, and concise view. We are grateful. I can't find questions or comments in my chat box, so maybe I will give some minutes for those who want to ask a question orally. If we can raise the hands for people, so that we can give our president some time to take a cup of water, even though I don't know how we can transport the cup of water to him from here over there. So
I have water, don't worry.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah, I think there's somebody raising your hands. Yes, Richard.
I can see Richard Okwe. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only person raising his hand. So, Professor Okwe, you can ask him the question or make comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean, VC, Dean, everybody, and our resource person. Thanks very much for the very brief and interesting presentation. The point I took there was the statement about discussing about the formation of whether medical educators or something, just to say that, learning is a continuous exercise. The National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria has always had what they call dosymology, which is essentially pedagogy in medical education, and that has been continuous. Very many years ago, there was an association formed, and that's still functional. Some of you in the audience, you know the late Austin Owovoriole. You know Professor Mudiwe from University of Ife, who is a certified medical educator. So the association is already there, and the National Postgraduate Medical College has this excellent medical education program, which they call dosmology. They hold from time to time. In fact, currently at the National College, before each fellowship examinations, there's always a training. So their curriculum has completely changed from simply competency based, and everybody is now, I wouldn't say beaten into shape, taken into one area of assessment in medical education of all faculties. And like 13, 14 years ago, the West African College of Physicians, I'm not a surgeon, I'm a psychiatrist, started the DAE, the Doctors as Educators program, which makes it mandatory for those who are going to be trainers, especially for the residency training program, to go through how a doctor can be a teacher. And the part of being a teacher is assessment method and assessment tools. So I'm just saying, in summary, I'm not sure this Association of Medical Educators was something new, because it's always been there. The late of really I said was a one-time chairman, but they call the Nigerian Association Preceptors, Medical Education Preceptors. They don't use the word Medical Education Association. Thanks very much indeed once again.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, just to say that, I mean, the person you're talking about in Ife is Professor Diego, who started it. I just want to take the first comment. We started it in 2012, and I think it didn't fly. Now, why didn't it fly? Because people still didn't understand. And I'm telling you, I've been when I go into medical education, the first few years I struggled. I just wanted to, but I teach. But I come to realize that there was a lot of flaws in myself, and the way I think now is different from the way I think before. Now, secondly, yes, you could be doing courses. I know about the doctors as educators because I'm a fellow of the Royal College London, and I've been working with the. In fact, I was their guest speaker in two of their conferences, and I'll be there this October. At the invitation with the president of Royal College in London. We'll be visiting Nigeria. So I've been working with people there. I've given talks on portfolios and all that. So, but there's still, it's not just having the academic knowledge, but how do we put it into practice? Because we're all leaders. But what my sense, even when I went to do some training on, it's still something that people are struggling. If I see on platforms, we should go back to the in terms of OSCE. We should go back to the long case and short case. So the one question I ask somebody: how will a long case tell you a safe doctor? Does a long case tell you communication skills? Because the person just class the patient and you just walk there and ask them questions. You don't subject them to how they communicate with the patient at all. So those are some of the things that we need to reflect on. So that's a comment. So the new. I am not part of the new, it was told to me by Professor Mudego that they are revamping it. That's what he said. And I'm sure when he comes and speaks to you, you can ask him that question. So that's why I was said that, that it's being revamped. So it's been there before, but it's being revamped. So that's what I'm trying to say. So like in my initial talk, I said, most of you are experienced teachers, but the thing is that, is it at faculty level? Are there quality assurance? Are there things that are in place to say that this is the way that people should do what they should do? I think that's the difference. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. I have a question on the chat box. Maybe after that, we will prepare for the next lecture. He asked, you did mention in your lecture about best of 5 in MCQ. So the questioner was asking, or is asking, the best of 5 or best of 4, which is the best practice recommendation?
Yeah, this is quite interesting because I gave talk about test analysis of MCQs for master's degree in medical education students. It doesn't really matter. There's no validation somewhere that best of 4 is better than best of 5. Now, the reason why we give best of 5 is to put in enough distractors. Because there are three things to MCQs. You have the STEM, you have you should be able to differentiate the differentiating factors. You should be able to have distractors also, which are possible. I gave several cases. I gave a case of a guy found unconscious. I was brought in by police to the A&E, and you have it on options. Do inspect the cerebrospinal fluid. Of course, you're not going to do an LP right away. So, but that is one of the plans of the. They say, but what's the immediate step? It's not that. You have phenytoin, you had a fit, you have phenytoin, you have diazepam. So those things bring clinical reasoning into the fore. And so what you're trying to do is to establish whether this person is not a test-wise student and is not a test-wise student, in that they can just easily remove 2 from the 4 and have 2 remaining there. That's why they make it 5. So it's like I said, it is not how will I put it now? There's no validation somewhere that it has to be 5 or 4. But I think 5 is better because you can put more distractors there. That's the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Maybe the last one is a comment that I will still raise it up from Dr. Sondoriji. He did state that large number of students per class amid limited facilities hinders these excellent models of learning. Okay, so why is our center not setting or using extra form of testing?
No, can you repeat that, please?
He said he is asking, said a large number of students per class. Within a limited facilities hinders these excellent models you just enunciated. So it's asking us, why is our center not setting or using extra form of testing?
Yes, if somebody's
promoting Excel.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. That one thing I don't believe in is exporting things from the UK to Nigeria. But at the same time, you should be able to look at best practices around the world. What can give you best practice? And you now inculcate it to your specific circumstances, because there are different cultures, there are different situations and things like that, and also including resources. In University of Puerto Rico, they're doing CBT now, and if you do use the CBT, you can also do test analysis of the questions, of the MCQ questions. So you can now kill an MCQ question, you can put it in the bank and all that. So I mean, that is something that is easy to do in this day and age. The university can invest in that. At least I know that the University of Puerto Rico does CBT. What I don't know whether they subject the questions when they're doing quality assurance to be able to analyze whether this question is fit for purpose when they do the analysis of the old questions and students' performance of those questions. Somebody else raised a hand. Have I answered the question? Yeah.
So the timekeeper here, please. I'd like to point out that we have roughly 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Next lecture can start.
All right. I think that's all we have in question from the chat box, and nobody else is raising their hand.
Well, if you permit me 1 second.
Okay, Professor Waffin.
I'm listening.
Okay, sir. Yeah, thanks very much, Professor Ibi, for the explanation with respect to 4 or 5. It really has been a very big challenge. Just to say that because of logistic reasons, currently, both the National College and the West African College, unfortunately, we are using the residency rather than we have not brought down this to our MBBS or graduate training. We make use of a CBT as a screener before people will proceed to the other rest of the exam. And because of the way the machine is configured, we have only best of 4.
Okay.
Best of 4. In fact, during the last two examinations, we had a very serious problem in some of the faculties for faculties that did not conform to the way the machine is or was configured. Examination had to kind of not to go into the debate of validation of a fact, but just to say that it is for logistic reasons because our current examination CBT at the residency level is being marked by machine configured to 1 in 4, both West Africa and the National College, and we make use of jam machines and centers.
Okay, I mean in the UK, I mean in Manchester, we have what we call progress test, and in the undergraduate, even in the postgraduate exam, MRCP Part 2 rating, it is best of 5. That's what they do. So it is like I said, there's not been any evidence or research somewhere that says the best of 4 is better than best of 5 or best of 5. But in my own view, that the more distractors you have, the more you're going to be able to know students that are performing better, students that are not performing better, students that are in the middle, because you also know test-wise students. If you analyze the responses at the end of the exam, and that will also enable you to kill some of the MCQ questions because they may not be useful. Because test-wise students are getting it. Because if you analyze it by test analysis, you see that that is the case. I just want to briefly enjoy that because the next talk is going to take about an hour because that's where I want to emphasize things, and there'll be a lot of discussions.
All right, so I think we'll stop and then move to the next one.
Yes, let's move to the next one. And when we're talking about general overview of the questions, we can say we want to spend an hour to answer questions and answers. And like I said, at the end of the day, all of you are experienced people. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I just want you to reflect on what you're doing, and we can also share best practices. And that's the essence of this workshop. So can I go to the next one, please? Let me just stop.
So the next will be on demonstration of the setting of OSCE questions.
Yes, so let me just stop this and show. Can you see me?
We can.
Yes, I'll see you, sir.
Okay, all right. Let me just change to the next slide. Okay. Let me go take this away. All right, very good. So let me bring up the next slide, please.
Sorry, I don't know what I was offline in minutes.
Prof, we can take your question next time. We can take your question after this lecture or during question and answer at the end. We're going to
it's up to you. I think there's a moderator there who will be able to answer that question. Sorry, I mean, it's up to you. Well, the next one, we're going to take about 60 minutes, slightly more, because there'll be a lot of discussions around it. Or it's up to you if something that we can do. We have up till.
We'll probably move on to the second lecture.
Okay, right.
Yes, I wanted to ask. Sorry that I just interjected.
Professor Kocha, we're saying we'll take the second lecture. Then after that, we can take your question.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, Prof.
Okay.
Yes, we are seeing it, Prof.
Okay, so now this is going to be something that is going to be very interesting. I want to know your views on how you've been doing things because there's a lot of controversy everywhere I go. And I've done this talk many places. I've done it for at least 5 or 6 universities in Nigeria. Most of them are in the South. And also I've spoken in UNTH just last year. So I'm still asking questions. Now the question is, there's a shift worldwide, and now virtually every university in the UK does OSCE. And there was a lot of research that was done into it before they decided that this is the way we want to go. Because there was a lot of both quantitative and qualitative studies. that were used before they came to the decision. So it's not something that, oh no, this is the way we want. So what I'm going to introduce is setting. I'll set the scene. What's OSCE station types, competencies that you want to assess, station writing, and OSCE marking and scoring instruments, standard setting for an OSCE and key points. So how did this OSCE come? It came about in the 70s, in the late 60s and 70s by Professor Harding at the University of Dundee Medical School in the so what brought that excuse me, the development was to help address the unreliability and lack of the of the traditional forms of clinical assessment, namely the long case and the short case. Now, since then, they've gained wide popularity in the assessment of clinical competency. Now, I will tell you why the long case and short case, they were good at the time they were used, but there were certain elements, especially the certain elements of doctor's assessment. If you look at the assessment domains that I've put, doctor as a scientist, doctor as a practitioner, and doctor as a professional, you cannot challenge a doctor in a long case on ethical side of things. You can't assess the communication skills. And you can't assess certain skills that are supposed to be competency driven by just, you can assess knowledge, and in short case, you can assess somebody's palpation in the abdomen and things like that, and telling you rattling causes of this. But even when you're in an OSCE station where you see street taking, you're seeing interaction. You're sitting there and watching interaction between how the student takes the history. It's not just going away. You take history and physical exam and you come and stand and then you begin to say, summarize your findings and all that. That doesn't make a better doctor. So Miller in 1990 described the conceptual pyramidal model of the various facets of clinical competence, which is know, knows how, shows how, and all that, which I'm going to show you again. So the facet of clinical competence is more behavioral than just cognitive knowledge. Please, that's a very good point that I'm making here. Oscars are a common method of assessing the shows how layer of Miller's triangle. So I'll just show you that. So that is Haddon. He produced this landmark paper in the British Medical Journal in 1975, and that paper is still resonating with us till today. Medical education, assessment of clinical competence using objective structural method. After that study, that qualitative study, in 1975, the shift was slow. With many institutions not still in until now. In the last 10 years, virtually every institution is doing that. So this is Miller's pyramid for assessing clinical competence. So you talk about the knows and knows how, which you will assess in your MCQs, including the best of 5. So the clinical station is not coming to tell you 10 concepts. You've already tested that in knows how. Of course, in knows how, there's some bit of clinical reasoning that you're putting cases for them to put the right answer. So you say, what is the immediate first step in this scenario? So of course, you're testing knowledge there. So the demonstration of skills is the OSCE itself. So that's still that. DOS is the one that you do workplace-based assessment, where they have a logbook, they do it right in front of you in the ward. Because the demonstration of learning is usually in vitro, which is some of the things that you use actors, some of them you use real patients. So what are we assessing now? We just bring this back. Knows, factual, sense, true or false, MCQs, SBAs, MCQ. But shows how is performance assessment in vitro, that's OSCE. Performance assessment in vivo, which is on the ward, during ward rounds and all that, that is workplace-based assessment. And that's what we do with our trainees and also our students. That's our model. So what are we assessing? What are we assessing? We're assessing communication skills, patient-centeredness, physical examination, procedural skills, problem solving, clinical reasoning, data interpretation, decision-making, management investigations, attitudes, professionalism, prescribing, handling ethical and legal scenarios. So what does this mean? It's usually done in a controlled environment, which all of you know there's a control. OSCEs present all candidates with the same clinical scenario, the same amount of time, and marks using a structured checklist. Now, I'll come to the scoring of OSCEs. So usually it's compared between 10 and 18 stations. In different settings, for different stations. In Manchester, it's 16 stations. In Plab, I think there are 18 stations. In MRCP cases, there are 5 stations. But each of the 5, the one is divided into 2. So in essence, there are 9 stations. There are 10 stations. So therefore, each candidate will have at least the same experience through all the stations. So this is what I'm saying. What is it? It's objective. Objective means that scoring is driven by predefined observable behaviors, not examiner impression. It's structured because every candidate faces the same tasks, patients, time limits, and scoring tools. Many short stations, samples, many short stations, so one bad case can't decide the result. So you can see, look at the way it goes. A typical circuit in OSCEs goes history, exam, procedure, data, counseling, and rest. Then it goes. It goes around and your different cases. So this is it. They are looking at, this is just a picture I got from the internet. This is not Manchester. You just look at so they have they look at the students there. They're all looking at their this is not in the UK. We don't use report codes anymore. So I just got this from this is it. But the way it is designed is the way it is because we have a clinical skills center. That's what we do our skills. We don't do it on the general board because it's going to disrupt clinical care. So this brings me to the OSCE design consideration. So when you're considering OSCE, please, you want to know the number of stations. And then testing time per station. Is it going to be 8 minutes? Then at 6 minutes, you give a signal, 2 minutes more? Or how do you need to decide that? You need to decide the space, you need to decide staffing, examiners, floor staff, equipment, simulated patients, real patients, volunteers. You need to decide that. How many of them, real patients, how many are going to be simulated patients and volunteers. Please just avoid just grabbing somebody on the corridor and saying, you come and do this. It will make the exam unfair. Throughout ensuring clinical authenticity, fairness, and standardization. That's what you should aim to achieve throughout. So what are the steps? So one is designed to a standardized template. But more importantly, it has to be mapped to the curriculum and blueprinted, which means that blueprint means you're mapping the assessment to the curriculum. Conservative alignment is that the mapping assessment to learning outcomes. So it is clinically validated, logistics within the hospital, within the whatever you're doing the program. You need calibration before the exam. And these exam questions are reviewed by basis and excellent examiners. Modified, reviewed, proofread. Then there will be what we call an emendation meeting. I used to be the lead for OSCE exam for year 4, University of Manchester Medical School. And I go for emendation. Emendation meetings take almost the whole day. We do it successively in a week. Emendation means that you're looking at the whole scenarios from the question, from the things required to put in the station. Do you need if a neurology exam, do you need a tuning fork? You need this. All this will be written on the script, and then you need to talk about what is expected of the skills that you want to be demonstrated in that particular station. And then you need to, also think about calibration and all that. So all those things we look at them, and then we look at whether is it fair to tell a student to do certain type of skills. in that time setting. So all those things, all those decisions are taken. We can adjust the wording of the station question and all that. And these things are modified and reviewed. Everybody decides that this is good. It will now for that academic session, it will now be delivered. Now, the next academic session will look at these things again that they were fit for purpose, so we'll now put them in the bank. So it goes to exam board, workshop, review of examiner, and expert feedback. So we take all this into consideration to be able to review the questions in the station, because everybody gets a feedback, computerized feedback to just take what you're thinking of. Is it too difficult, too fair, and all that? Is it this? So they want your own impression. So what are the discipline steps of this? So you want to define the decision, blueprint. Blueprint, which I said, if you're given an assessment that is not mapping to your curriculum, I think, look at it, map the station to the competencies, context, and difficulty. You got to do that. Name the pass-fail decision and the construct to defend. So you need to decide that this is what is going to be borderline. This is what is going to be, that is using global rating. This is going to be borderline, failed, borderline, pass, satisfactory, and good. 5. So that is in global rating. I'll talk more about that. So writing the station, STEM task, and the linked briefing documents. It all needs to be in the station. So design your scoring, do your checklist, global rating or hybrid, can do it too. We do it too. We do a checklist and global rating. Then you apply your borderline regression, whatever way you want to do. How do you know a borderline candidate? Is it a particular specific mark? Or do you want to survey it to borderline regression? And so you review the data. So that is the way to go. One golden rule, keep every station document together. So a change to the mark sheet triggers matching changes every other place. So that's something that you should be aware. Now let's start with decision, not the scenario hiding. Most stations begin with, let's do a chest pain case. That's the wrong entry point. Begin instead with the inference you must defend, then build the instrument to support it. What decision does this cause support, and what inference must be defensible? That's what you should ask. So content tasks represent the real, construct makes the competency not test taking or charm. So somebody will be charming when he could come. Don't just do the thing there, the skill. Demonstrate the skill for me, let me say. Tasks represent the real clinical work. Trained examiners apply rules consistently. Internal structure, items and stations hang together statistically. So consequences, pass-fail decisions, hold up and remediate fairly. So you almost have this in mind for you to have the kind of when you want to set. So it's a process, like I said. So you map every station to the curriculum. This is what I've done. Competency you want to assess. History taking, physical exam, communication skill, data interpretation, procedural skill, management plan. So these are all key skills that somebody needs to demonstrate. So in this, you build the matrix in 3D. Competency and system difficulty cover the curriculum, not the obvious cases. Weights by how often and how critical in practice. So, for example, you can't go and put something on the station that is rarely experienced by even when they graduate as officers or doctors, because they'll be in A&E, they've never seen some kind of thing. But you put that in the station. But you now look at the curriculum. Does it really map to the curriculum at all? So that's something that we need to remember. So I've just shown you, this is the blueprint that we use from University of Manchester. So you can see, while endocrine here, we want to put a question on discharge planning. How do you explain to a patient who is coming to the ward with ketoacidosis, first-time diabetic diagnosis, came into the ward with kids? So what are you going to tell them when you're discharging them? So you can see that we are looking at that particular data interpretation. I'll give you a renal data to be able to understand whether I'll give you a case and then put the data there, whether you'll be able to marry the data with the history there, and then give me your thinking. And then you can also infectious diseases. So this is the way you should map it. You put all the things, year 3, year 4, what they're supposed to learn, and then emphasize your this thing in that order. So marking with the curriculum, which is the blueprinting, is very important. So, right, station construction, this is what happens. Now, the and constraint who, where, how long, and exactly what to do. Please don't use how I want to trick the candidates. The task is observable, is discrete, and aligned to the construct. So the clinical task itself just drives the score. So what they asked to do, candidate brief, the patient script, character history prompts, assessor brief, what to look for versus the aims, mark sheet, behaviors, cues, rating scale, patient feedback. This consolidates the handout for consolidates, which is the feedback you give to the student after the exam. There will be a feedback column. For example, somebody comes to examine the abdomen. So say, examine this abdomen and give me your findings. So you palpate the abdomen, and then you now palpate the abdomen, and the way you palpate the abdomen, you say, I noticed that you did not check for an enlarged spleen. So I will suggest that you do more of abdominal examination on the ward. So that is the feedback to the candidate. So in summary, station writing involves writer selection, writer training. You don't just tell, oh, can you just write me an ask question? There must be a committee to write it. Station template, you decide amendation, which I've explained before, you pilot it and carefully deciding whether it is fit for purpose. Now, let me come to this point, use of simulated patients. And that's where we get medical students, or some people use their theater students to be professional actors. So conventionally for consultation-based session, but also for examination. Recruitment experience, skills, and diversity training needed, demographics, clinical relevance to the station, calibration, consistency, and acceptability and expectations. Now, I will talk about calibration as in the next couple of slides, so that the marking is consistent between the two examiners. So how to set, so let's just take them step by step now. How to set and ask questions step by step demonstration. Identifying, first of all, I did mention before, identify the competency being assessed. Every asking question must assess a specific skill, not general knowledge. So if you're taking a history in chest pain, there are more the skills in that chest pain that you want to get. Is he asking this? He has not asked this. Is it a red flag that must be asked? If that red flag is not taken, that candidate should not go be above satisfactory or something. So examples are focus history taking, physical exam, clinical reasoning, communication, breaking bad news, consent, procedural skills, data interpretation. One station, one primary competency you're assessing. So you cannot assess 3 competencies in one station. That is, I mean, because at the end of the day, you can assess 16 skills. Even breaking bad news, you can or under communication skills, you can have like 5, under communication skills. So under each listen that you'll be able to get one, what's the skill that you're trying to assess here. So for example, the history taking, assessing both applied clinical knowledge and communication aspects. So in history taking, you can do it too. And you'll carefully construct to encourage clinical reasoning over simple pattern recognition. Decide the patient versus examiner questions, differentials, onward diagnosis and treatment. Try to anticipate students' questions and provide answers to them. So, keep everything in the language for the SP second person, which is the either if you're using a simulated patient, they must understand key medical languages. You get the marking guide, the failure to elicit key differential. So if somebody has chest pain with chest pain and all that, and the person says, oh, it's indigestion that is causing it, or he has epigastric pain. So have you asked whether this is due to angina or not? Is this a key differential that you must consider? So Physical examination and procedural skills, system-based and symptom-based. Students have to talk through what they are doing and what they find as they proceed. That is an aspect. You can also tell them that they can free their examination and not tell. So it's the summarize their findings, likely differentials, comparison of science with another condition. So somebody tells you it's likely to be this, it gives you a reason why it is likely to be that. It gives you another differential, but what is not here that is this. It's not in keeping with that differential and all that. So that's one thing that, so there's a time. So if in that station you have a secondary task after the first 3 minutes, you want them, after the examination of first 5 minutes, now show them the data. So this patient came into A&E, this is the data, the blood results and all that. Then they begin to, process some versus product. So ethics and challenging communication, addressing ethical dilemmas, negotiating difficult management decisions, communicating with challenging patients needs to have enough to fill 8 minutes and to stretch the student. Usually our full stations are 8 minutes. 6 minutes, 6 minutes, the students is made aware that 2 minutes is remaining. And they use 1 minute to read. So sharing information, explaining diagnosis, procedure, investigation, management, admission, arrangements. So a patient is being, so I go to manage, because if you get a household, so can you arrange an admission for this patient? How do you admit patients? How do you manage? How do you explain to patient what you want to do about the investigation? Assessing both applied knowledge and communication aspects can be done here. Students will briefly revisit history to establish the background and generally no examiner questions. You just watch the interaction between the patient and the listener. Please, one of the things I've noticed when I was invited as an external examiner in one of the universities for MBBS exam, final exam, was that some examiners were on their phone. They were not even looking at the student, demonstrate the skills. So station types and writing tips, acute care, you have to have a station of acute care. Acute care, combine history and examination, instructions on how to simulate the science, observation charts, and examiner asks differential diagnosis, investigations, and immediate treatment. So what is the immediate first step in treatment? Yeah. So the same thing about data interpretation. Prescribing, we have a prescribing station at therapeutics, explain medication to a patient, explain medication to somebody who is newly hypertensive. So what are you going to tell them? And how do you want to explain what is hypertension and what medication you're going to use, the side effect that's going to happen, but what you can do and how you can reassure the patient. That is a lifelong treatment and all that. So now this brings me to the assessor, which is yourself and I. So we need to deal with unconscious biases, anchoring and halo effects and all of that. These are not particularly resolved through training. There's no specific, but we in the UK we are made aware about that you need to be conscious of your unconscious bias. Number two is that assessors possess unique idiosyncratic performance theories, personal beliefs about what constitutes a good performance. No, follow the script. Follow the guidelines. Use their own clinical abilities as their frame of reference. Oh, this is the way I do it. No, that's not the case. You do it the standard way that has been put in the station there, rather than recognize assessment standards. Assessor judgments appear to be frequently guided by inferences that go beyond their observations. No, don't think of any other thing. Think of what is in front of you. Oh, I know this guy before. He's not a very good guy on the ward. No, but he's performing well there. So you assess him the way he is. It is there. Because if you subject that student that you said is not very good to communication skills station, you will see the flaws. So you don't need to begin to say, oh, I know this guy is not a very good guy. He's this, that. So that is not the case. So we need to understand ourselves as we're examiners. So we need to write a scoring system, which is choose checklist procedural, which is good for procedural and structured tasks, global rating scale, which is good for communication and reasoning. We use the board here in Manchester. I'm sure most of you use the checklist and all that. And some centers use the board. It would be nice to know what your own experience is. So checklist, what is it? I'm sure I don't need to explain this to you. You already know it. Is that it's objective and reproducible, but can reward thoroughness over judgment. So it can get a student that is an actor, very good actor. He will perfect, he will do all the structured things, but he doesn't have a good clinical judgment. Now, that can now, if you now put the two together, global rating, it captures the expert's holistic judgment, but it's less granular and harder to defend alone. So you need the two, the checklist and the global rating. So somebody comes and examine the abdomen, it does it thoroughly. And then when you now subject him to clinical reasoning, it can't put the science and science together to make a very sensible differential diagnosis. So if you just pass him on checklist, the guy will pass, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know how to manage the patient or doing that. So hybrid is what we recognize: checklist for behaviors and a global scale for judgment. The two complement each other. So I just want to delve into this more deeply. So analytic checklist. So there are two types. You have not done, done. You take polyautonomous, done, not done, attempted, done well. So some people have this like this. You have analytic domain ratings, judgments on series of scale. So you list the things, he does the inspection, he does this, he did this. And then the the third type, which is holistic global ratings, careful consideration needed of anchor descriptors. So you have a descriptor which says that if it does this is satisfactory. So that's a global judgment. And for example, if you have somebody who does the physical examination very well and gets the differential diagnosis completely wrong, how will he pass that patient? So that person should probably borderline. That's it. Shouldn't pass the exam. And that's where the problem is, where they say people are just passing. Because if you just use checklists, you just be monotonous. Like I said, actors, they'll come and do the thing like very smooth and all that. But there's no global judgment to this. Because all we're doing, we're just in front of our script, doing the checklist. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't do this well, there's a record. And that's what, even the PACES exam in here, that's what we do. Even in the PLAB exam, that's what they've done. You do the two. You do checklist and you do global judgment. And then when you put the two together, you now draw up a regression plot, which now gives you who can be borderline. I'll think more listening on that. Now, this brings me to the so assessment as measurement versus assessment as judgment. So how do we look at this? So measurement versus judgment. Checklist treats scoring as objective measurement. Rating scales embrace expert professional judgment. So we need to put it two. We're all consultants. We are very knowledgeable. So we need to put the two together. So I'm going to give the two aspects of things so that we understand why the two should be together. Checklist, standardization of scoring and feedback benefits, but not sensitive to levels of expertise. Trivializes clinical competency, rewards rote performance, which is this sleek performance. But domain global ratings better evaluates higher order thinking and mastery. If you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, which goes from remembering and all that, and if you look at the various learning theories and assessment of learning, you could see that there's an argument that supports these two. So evidence in medical education increasingly favors global domain ratings for clinical stations because they better discriminate by ability, while checklists remain useful for procedural safety critical steps where specific actions must be verified. So I hope that makes sense to everyone, so that it is a combination of the two. So I just want to talk a bit more on this, just to make you understand. A narrative review found no consensus on what checklist rating scales are superior. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. Not 5 years ago, a study showed that checklists were just as sensitive as. So there's no one that's better than the other, but the two is excellent. A choice should depend on the purpose of the station, not assumptions about superiority. So look at what the global marking for examiners. I want to go into this. So like I said, I want to delve on this topic a bit more than others. So the global mark represents your professional judgment of the candidate's overall performance at your station, considering the criteria described in the station rubric. So global rating, number 1 is failed, 2 borderline, 3 pass, 4 good, 5 excellent. Now, what is an excellent candidate? A candidate shows a remarkable level of competence, confidence, and care. The candidate clearly knows what is required, has a systematic approach, and in clinical situation considers and responds to patient concerns and comfort. The candidate fulfills all criteria. So the good one is the candidate is competent in clinical situations, caring and patient-centered. The approach is broadly systematic, but may lack coherence and confidence. Most criteria are fulfilled. The candidate is basically competent and shows evidence of caring or patient-centeredness where appropriate. More than half the criteria, including the key criteria, are fulfilled, but not always systematically. So it's haphazard. For example, if you say, give me a history, so it talks about history of presenting complaint, then it just delves less into, it delves less into social history before you even presenting complaints. So it's not systematic at all. So the candidate lacks confidence or is inappropriately overconfident. Borderline is between the satisfaction and the fail. That's where the key thing. So because if you decide the borderline pass, that determines who should get excellent, good, and satisfaction. And in terms of the holistic. So the candidate clearly misses one or more criteria. The majority of the criteria are not fulfilled, and the approach is unsystematic, uncaring. The level of confidence is clearly inappropriate. So you can see this is now the other one checklist. I'll show you some examples. So checklist for some global ratings. I've just put a descriptor here.
Sorry, sir. Timekeeper here, sir. You have 30 more minutes remaining.
How much?
30 more minutes.
30.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So introduces self and confirms identity. So these are tick boxes. You can see them. Tick boxes. Asks about radiation, you tick. Asks about associated symptoms, you tick. This is chest pain. So this is on the other side, the domains are after doing all this, you now go to the global rating scale. So what has it done at all? You look at clinical reasoning, you look at diagnostic accuracy, you look at communication, you look at other things, So those are the holistic judgment. And so those are the things that give you a global scale. Plus this, you now see that this candidate is satisfied, is passed. So that is something that we use here. So look at an example. History taking station OSCE. Station objective, assess ability to take a focused history for chest pain and identify features of ACS. Candidate instructions, take a focused history from this patient who presents with chest pain. After the history, summarize the findings and give your most likely diagnosis. So in the 12 points that you've put, in the history, he establishes the onset, explores character, radiation, associated symptoms, risk factors, past cardiac history, drug history, allergies, red flags, summarizes, gives likely diagnosis. So when he does tick that, he now say, well, let's make global this. So what is his clinical reasoning like? What is diagnosis accuracy? When he now gives you the diagnosis, communication skills with the patient, overall performance. So that those two gives you a clear competency scale for this station. Same thing with physical examination. Perform a focused abdominal examination on this patient. You don't need to take any history. Tell the examiner your findings. The same thing. Wash his hands, exposes appropriately, inspects the body. This is a 14 checklist. Then you now say, what is his technique in terms of, technique, a systematic approach, patient comfort, and professionalism. So you now have the so you do the two, and then you see. So the same thing with communication skills. Does he show empathy, clarity, patient-centeredness overall? Communication. Of course, somebody that whether it's going to bring subjectiveness, the global rating scale. It's not going to be, because you're going to use your checklist to be able to assess this, and you're watching. So you're not just ticking boxes like a slick candidate who comes and examines, especially in those examination stations. So I would argue that it does not cause subjectiveness. There's some element of course, you're a clinician and judgment, but if he has done most of the tasks on the checklist, of course, and the way he deals with the patient, you will see it yourself. So it's not something that will be hidden. You're not going to go somewhere else and then you then come back to know whether he's empathic or whether is the way he gives information to the patient is there's clarity in the way he talks with the patient. or whether it's actually his patient-centered, how will he be able to assess that? Because even his patient-centeredness, in the way he talks, those descriptors are on the list there. Because somebody can say, "Oh, I'm sorry that you went through this," and all that. Or somebody telling you that, "Oh, for example, you want to talk to somebody about smoking cessation," and you say, "Oh, you're being judgmental rather than being trying to, persuasive to say that this is not good for your health, but you're being judgmental," and all that. So let's go to standard setting now. All conventional models view the OSCE marking rubric as a measurement, conducted at station level, at exam level. Now, there are things that make, I don't know the way you do your OSCEs and how you set your standards, but in our, let's say you need to pass a minimum number of stations is passed. That's conjunctive. But when you now look at compensation, which means that successful application of some skills makes for unsuccessful application of others. So there are people that have been making this argument, but we look at minimum number of stations passed. So evidence in medical education increasingly favors global domain ratings for clinical stations because they discriminate abilities while checklists remain useful. So don't get me wrong, useful for procedural and safety critical steps. Where specific actions must be verified. So many of cases use a hybrid. That's what we use. A short checklist of essential items plus a global rating which leans on the examiner's judgment, correcting for error at exam level with conjunctive standards, rather than rigid station level checklist. I'm sure that makes sense. So look at the features, conjunctive and compensatory, must pass all required domains. So if there are 3 domains in that station that you're supposed to pass, you got to pass them. So when you look at the domains that are necessary for patient safety and, looking at diagnosis, treatment, communication skills, minimum competence, and safety critical skills, and sharp disposal, and all. So I'm just giving you some comparisons, knowledge heavy or broad assessment, poor communication, but good reasoning pass. Okay, this sharp disposal fail. For example, if you say that somebody should go and do a venipuncture and he puts the needle on the table, will he pass that candidate? Because it's going to be another colleague who cares their another member of staff of the ward where he does the bloods and put the needle on the table. We'll get needle stick injury. So those are the things that you need to think in real world, yes. So this is what I'm saying, that borderline regression. So that knocks off the subjective fears about global rating. So a standard setting method used in OSCE that links global rating, examiners overall judgment with checklist. So using that software, you use this real exam data to calculate the pass mark for each station. So it's adjust for station difficulty, combines objectivity with expert judgment, produces defensible data-driven pass marks, widely used across UK medical schools. So how does it work? Examiners score each student in 2 ways, checklist and global rating. After the exam, all student scores are plotted in a graph, global rating and checklist. This produces a scatter plot of performance, and then look at that, collect scores, plot the data, and all that, then you get a pass mark. And that's what is done in PLAB. That's what is done in the PACE exam. Now, there's a caveat there. One of the things that, for example, if in the station your global rating is borderline, so many borderline, that can bring the risk of bringing down the pass mark. And those that should fail without pass. So it's something that you need to think about in terms of, that's why calibration is so important in the station, so that 2 examiners, if one gives borderline, one is giving satisfactory, or one is giving excellent, that is not that station has not been calibrated properly. So calibration is what I'm going to discuss next now. So if there are 2 examiners and their marks are far apart, in PLAB they kill that station. It's not going to be used. because it skews the overall picture. So why borderline regression fits OSCIS is that OSCIS assess performance, not just knowledge. Borderline regression respects, look at what it does. Examiner judgment, station difficulty, with student performance, it is considered one of the fairest methods for clinical skills exam. So you now put the two together and subject to statistical analysis. It's all in it's available everywhere. You can use it. So this brings me to the final point of calibration. What is calibration in OSCIS? Calibration is the process of ensuring that all examiners apply the same criteria consistently, fairly, and in line with the intended standards before and during the OSCE exam. In simple terms, calibration makes all examiners mark it to the same standard. It reduces variability between examiners and increases the reliability and defensibility of the exam. So why does it matter? OSCE involves normally multiple stations and multiple examiners. Without calibration, one examiner may be lenient, another harsh. Some may reward communication, others may prioritize checklist. So you need to decide what are you going to mark from the outset. So borderline candidates may pass or fail depending on the examiner. Global ratings may drift over time. Stations become unfair and less defensible. I tell you. So calibration ensures consistency, fairness, reliability, alignment with curriculum outcomes, and legal defensibility. Because if students take the code, you can show them the data. Let's say this is the way we came to the conclusion that this candidate should not pass. Because these days, even in the university in Nigeria, in the UK, they take universities to court. You got to stand your grounds and be able to be legally defensible. It's not like when we don't have a voice. Right now, youngsters, they will their parents will say that no, their children are supposed to pass. I went to visit the provost of the College of Medicine, one of the Nigerian universities. I saw a parent there arguing with the provost. I said, I can't even imagine. So those are the things. So calibration discussion questions, for example, checklist reflection. Which steps were clearly performed? Which steps were ambiguous? Did any examiner give credit for partially completed steps? Should partial credit ever be allowed in this station? So those questions need to be asked. So combined scoring reflection. Does the checklist capture completeness? Does the global rating capture quality? How should we weight each component in high stakes exam like MBBS exam? So when you're looking at the global rating reflection, look at what happens now. So if you don't calibrate, you're going to find it difficult, because did the student's performance feel better or worse than the checklist score? Did communication quality influence your reasoning score? How do we avoid the halo effect? So those are the things that we need to understand. So whether you're doing the combination or you're just doing checklists, you need to subject it to scrutiny. So after the exam, you need to debrief summary of examiners. So checklists ensure coverage of essential steps. So you got to write it on your paper. What are the things that both of us examiners agree? So that paper would be attached when you submit your score at the end of the exam. Because what did people agree? You won't go home with that agreement, that both of you. In fact, in PLAB, me and the other examiner, we will sign it. Even in the PACES exam, you put your design, it is taken to the college for somebody saying that the flight is not moving. Is it not moving at all?
It is moving. It's probably his network.
It's moving, though.
Okay.
It's moving very well.
Okay. So the briefing exam.
The flights are moving. It's probably his network.
Okay. So if you have an examiner's meeting, things you should ask about is this. Checklist ensure coverage of essential steps. How did it go? Global ratings capture quality, judgment, and clinical reasoning. So if you're doing the two combined, you need to take that into consideration in your debriefing. So differences in scoring highlight the need for calibration and standardization sessions. The goal is consistency, not identical scores. That is a major issue. consistency. So what are the key points here? So I'll just summarize this now. So assessment of clinical competence is a critical task. We all agree to that, which allows decisions to be made on whether students can progress onto a higher level of study or medical qualification. OSCE examiners, therefore, have a vital role in this process, in delivering a reliable and fair assessment process. I always think that these doctors are going to treat our relatives and our friends and our mothers, our grandparents. So is it fit for purpose? Calibration matters. Calibration matters to reduce variability between examiners and increases the reliability and defensibility of the exam. All examiners are expected to complete update training. It is very important. So you give a benchmark. So as a faculty, you need to say, anybody, for example, if you attend this course, you're going to be say that you've now to add training. So we're hoping that you have all this in mind. So after 3 years, you need a refresher training. So identify the competency being assessed. That is so crucial because right now, kind of the paradigm has shifted to competency-based training. So finally, examiners must remember that potentially patients could be placed at risk if a candidate is competent but have not met the satisfactory standard of practice. So that's the take-home message. Thank you very much, and I'm prepared to take questions now.
All right, thank you very much, Prof, for a nice lecture. I'm sure you knew it will take time and draw more interest from persons. And there's a plethora of questions and comments. Prof, I don't know whether you have access to the chat box, or will I read it out for you?
No, I have access to the chat. The chat box is where is the chat box? Let's see. Okay, is it?
Incoming messages. In-call messages.
Well, what part of the screen? Because I'm not used to this.
Okay. If you go where we have 3 buttons, 3 dots, if you touch it, it will bring you a draw boxes where you could see in-call messages.
Okay.
In-call messages.
Incoming messages.
Okay. So if you click on incoming messages, you'll see the chat. There's also a question in under Q and A tab. I would read that one for you when you are done with this.
I think you have to read it to please.
All right. So let me do so.
Just read it for me, please. I think it's better as a moderator. Yes.
All right. Maybe should I take you back to a question on the former lecture? Should I skip it entirely?
Yes, sure. I'm prepared to take it. I think the feedback and mentorship is about 30 minutes lecture. So we should round off at 12:30 if that's what you want. But I'm within time, isn't it?
All right, you're within time, yes, sir. So someone asks, what's any difference in effectiveness between online lectures and face-to-face lectures?
Oh, that is very important. Now, let me tell you my own personal experience. I'm the academic lead for teaching and learning in year 3 for the University of Manchester. Now, during the pandemic, we had online, we all moved to online. And that was our first experience. I tell you, I really struggled, me personally, for the online teaching, because I had to manage all the lecturers that has to give online lectures. It was very challenging. And also, student engagement was challenging because you don't know. We try to tell, excuse me, sometimes you want to put them into subgroups. It's difficult, but so we really struggled. But we managed for 2.5 years. Yes, and so that's. But when we came back to face-to-face, it was like a breath of fresh air. I've always preferred face-to-face where possible. But online is improving now. During the pandemic and all that, we were just being exposed to that. So we were not very proficient with that. He can do polls, he can ask questions, he can put charts. It was a new experience. But comparing the two depends on the circumstance. If, for example, I'm doing this online now, but I'm able to communicate. There are tools to be able to exchange ideas and things like that. That's that. So each of them has its own pros, but I personally lean more to face-to-face.
All right, thank you, Prof. The another question says, does the global rating not bring in the subjectiveness we are running out from in Austin?
Yes, I've just explained why you can eliminate the objectivity. That's why you need to match the two. You cannot have somebody who have, for example, you have the checklist. He just checks 5, and you give him good. Then you now put the good and the 5 together. They're not going to match statistically at all. So it will kill it. So your checklist should match, because if somebody, okay, let me say there are 12 points you want to score against, and somebody gets like 9, and in one out of the 9, there's one that is in that checklist that is such an important skill that if the person should not do that patient can be put into danger. But if you just do checklist, say, okay, 10, the person passes. So 10, the person will pass, but the person is a dangerous doctor. Because you've now looked at the global rating, whether this person has done some things that is supposed to make the person not get satisfactory at all. So that's the global rating. So it doesn't bring subjective. So you get to match it. That's why the regression analysis plot is very important.
All right, thank you. Another question. So who truly should be involved in designing a curriculum? You have also suggested that students should be involved in designing their curriculum. The question I said, I don't think if that works for us.
I know it may not work for you, that's culturally. But yeah, quality assurance entails, because when you get visited by the General Medical Council, they want to know the response of your students' feedbacks to your curriculum. You cannot set up a curriculum for robots. You're setting a curriculum for human beings. So having their feedbacks does not mean that you subject to their decision. They are the stakeholders, whether we like it or not, because without students, we all lose our jobs. There should be students in university, and they should have a say in terms of feedbacks. We don't just say, you just come in, we tell you what to do and all that. If the people you're giving something, just like you're giving somebody something that is not suitable at all. So we should know and then be able to analyze that feedback and be able to take that decision. So I'm not saying that students should be part of curriculum, the committee. No, I'm saying that you should get kind of input from students. You can tell the students' body, to say that, look, we want your input into this curriculum. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that students should be part of the curriculum, but I know culturally we're in a hierarchical society, so you feel that student is not down there, so they don't have a say. But I think they have a say.
All right, thank you. Another question. I personally think we should have a team of medical trainers who are also trained in education for curriculum design, validation of examination methods, questions, etc. Or the second part of it says, should there be veto stations or veto items in a station for austere assessment?
There shall be what? The second one?
Should there be veto stations or veto items in a station for austere assessment?
No, you see, there's no, I think the right word is not veto. If for example, you are assessing somebody for, say, for example, if somebody has examine the abdomen, somebody has chronic liver disease with portal hypertension, and the person does not demonstrate that this patient, part of the things about hypertension, of the portal hypertension, is that he has ascites, he has other things. He's not able to recognize even splenomegaly and all those things. But this is also thinking, how will he be able to know how to manage his patient? Because he can't identify those signs, and he tells you the management. I'm going to pass him. I won't pass him. So it's not vetoing. There are skills that, we're not saying that are killer, we'll call it killer points, not veto. We don't do killer points in undergraduate medical exam, but we'll say that they should be able to identify a risk factor If they don't identify that risk factor, they should not go beyond satisfactory. Or they should not, yes, satisfactory is a certain pass mark, a certain level of that mark. Because satisfactory is giving a figure. They should not go beyond that. So we don't veto that this person should fail because he has not done that. No, that's not what we're saying.
All right, thank you. Another question. So what should be done to students who come around and yes, refuse to carry out assignments and instructions? That is good training.
Okay, students are not carrying out instructions and doing training, and then they come to the exam and pass and do well. Is that what you're saying?
We didn't check your exam.
No,
we're not doing training.
Yes. What I said at the beginning was that there's a formative assessment and a summative assessment. I mean, you should have recognized that during a formative assessment during the placement. And that's when you should, you see, this is the problem. There's no engagement between teachers and students, because during the posting, you should be able to identify. So you want to know, why is this happening? And that should be correct before they go to the summative assessment.
Timekeeper here, please. We have 5 more minutes before the end of this exercise.
There's a lady in Kiru Ezema who raised her hand. So can she speak, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah.
Yes. In conducting OSCEs here, examiners are usually instructed to not speak to the candidates, just observe and score. I was glad to hear you mention feedback to the candidate on their OSCE performance. Can you throw a bit more light on that?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Now, just the first point you made. Now, there are certain stations that you just observe, especially communication skills and some procedural skills. You just observe. But there are certain things in history taking that you need to speak to say that, okay, at 6 minutes, the rule is that you should start to ask the patient the 3 main questions. What's your diagnosis? What do you think is most likely? And their management plan. 3 things. So if they just say that and the 2 minutes finishes, they go. If they now say the things and they're not able to say, if somebody is, say, what's your diagnosis? He says within 20 seconds, you say that. What's the next one is what's most likely. It's next 10 seconds, you say that. Then the next 1 minute, will tell you what you're going to do. So you'll be able to rate the candidate, the score, So you can also speak in the stations, not just observe. So in terms of observation, it depends on the station and the clinical skills you want to demonstrate. So you just observe, don't speak. So at 6 minutes, you now tell them, so you have 2 minutes. No, you won't need to say it, the bell will ring, or somebody will knock, or bell will ring to know that it's 2 minutes remaining. So after that, they leave the station, you mark. So there are 2 sets. Now, the second part is that all of our score sheets have a feedback. So what we'll do is that if you look flustered during the exam and you did not mention the red flags especially if it's history taking a clinical exam, history taking. So it will be, so I will advise that you go and read more about chronic liver disease or this. So that feedback goes to the student with the mark. When they are being told their performance.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Professor Back, you can ask your question. Your hand is up.
Somebody's hand is up. Okay, thank you so much. Because I just mentioned the way you could do it. Now, for example, you can just put a history. Say you have this 55-year-old male who presents with abdominal swelling and all that. So abdominal swelling and leg swelling, and with a previous history of hepatitis B infection or something like that. Or you put a description there that will tell. So they take a history of abdominal swelling and things, and then it comes down to chronic liver disease. So when you now do that, you have to ask 3 questions. So you're allowed 3 questions there. The interaction is once 6 go, yeah. Once 6 minutes, they will do all the tasks in 6 minutes. The remaining 2 minutes is they tell you the differential diagnosis. The number 2, they tell you the likely diagnosis. Number 3, they tell you the management. So those 3 would take 2 minutes. So 8 minutes gone. So you score them based on that. Has that answered the question, IK? Okay. All right.
Well, Professor Kenneth, our time is certainly up. We'll allow Professor Eze to ask a question. Maybe we'll reserve other questions, both verbal and those in the chat box for the last segment, because we have time for question, reflection, and goodwill messages at the end of the 3rd lecture. But we will have Professor Eze to ask a question. Professor will not ask them at the last round. Thank you, Professor Eze.
Oh, thank you very much. My question had been answered when he was answering other questions, so I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so Professor Oke, you can now take his place so that we can keep the rest.
Very quickly, just to say that we appreciate Dr. Rico Summer. My little discomfort here is that we seem to have limited most of these issues to our residency training, and we have not brought it down to our MBBS program. For example, with the issue of curriculum, just as an example, somebody asked, we in the West African College and National College, we do not do curriculum without the students. The first thing is feedback and kind of question to the resident doctor before ever we embark on curriculum. And then second, Professor Rico Sema has talked about a borderline. We found this very difficult at National College. As I said, these things are done at the residency level. What we use is minimally competent, because we have difficulty. We want to produce a doctor, especially at the specialist level, who is minimally competent to be able to manage it rather than borderline. Maybe at the last point, Professor Kosima may make a comment on this. The difficulty we had and why we decided to concentrate on minimally competent rather than borderline. And of course, just to say that some of these, some of the developments in medical education, and sometimes I ascribe to timing and the number of patients, number of candidates that we're having. The University of University of Kampala, Makerere University has a very excellent non-OSCE, non-LOC is a very excellent, which we will not go into detail. Maybe just that those 2 curriculum. Yes, we do that. Currently, we are reviewing the curriculum in the National College faculty. And the resident doctors are part.
Yeah.
But as I said, minimally competent, and borderline.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for your question, which is very, very, good. Now, the first point I made, I've been talking about both undergrad and postgrad. We use this in undergrad. I don't have any leadership role in the postgrad. I'm just an examiner. But I got exam meetings in postgrad in the UK. And in fact, I'm going to be attending as an observer to the West African College. So what I'm trying to say to you that whatever word you use, the borderline was used because of the way you calculate the regression, borderline regression. It's not as if you can't go to the patient, this is a borderline candidate, this is a borderline doctor. No, that's not what we're saying. Now, coming to competency. Now, the question I asked, one of the things that drive us, my experience with PLAB exams has been very enriching. Now, we get doctors from abroad. Now, the doctors from abroad, the competency level that will put them, everybody, whether you're a consultant coming to write PLAB, is FY2. FY2 means 1 year post-graduation, 2 years post-graduation. And we put this is that from the first day, you need, of course, you will be supervised by a consultant. So if you're in A&E and we pass you in PLAB, you're good, which means that you are supervisable. When we say that you're borderline, which means that you're not there, you're not competent, the right word is minimally competent, which means that you need real oversight. You need real oversight. Now, in the postgraduate exam, one will say borderline, and we put in the mark sheet why this person is borderline, because the chief examiner will write about three points why this person is borderline. And if you get borderline on that particular station, it might pass because there's a statistic they use. They look at the skills domains. We look at 7 skills in postgraduate exam. If you fail 3 skills in the postgraduate exam, even though you get overall mark pass, you fail. It's the statistics. So at the end of the day, if you have passed the MRCP exam, truly you've passed, because with skills we are looking at, we're not just looking at overall grades and things like that. That's postgraduate. But in medical school, we do differently, because these are medical students who are going to come to foundation year, which is house officers. They will be really supervised. So we use a different system there. Borderline means that if you get, okay, let me just say that the way we will do what we call composite, which is if there are 16 stations, I mean there are 16 stations. If you pass 14, you will be fine. I mean your term as good. If you pass this, so it's the number of stations, right? So that's the point. So I always say that design your exams to meet your special situation, but you should not go beyond. You should not go below best practices. That's my advice.
All right, Prof. The last one. Someone asked, who should produce standard questions for examination, and how is standard questions produced?
No, the standard question is not produced by some clever people that you bring around. You need to put what you call a benchmark. So you look at what people are doing other places and come up with a benchmark. And so how do we, so if you set a question, so for example, I put a question, I first put the objective of the question, and then I put secondly, how will you frame the question so that it's not ambiguous? So it's decided by the committee. So there is no special standard question somewhere they're going to lift. You will decide and look at the wording, but you first of all you need to look at the objective of that particular station, or why that particular case, the objective of that station, and then you frame the student's task. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Will you want to take some minutes off before the third lecture, or you want to go straight on?
Can we start 11:45, please? Because my mouth is all dry.
Thank you. So 11:45, 11:45, we'll go in for the third lecture. Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you everyone who have asked a question and made a comment. After the third one, the remaining questions in the chat box and those whose hand are still up, Professor Ogojo, you have opportunity to ask for questions. Prof is a good teacher and willing to get feedback from his students. Thank you very much. In 7 minutes time, we'll start again. Then, you want to say something to us, we can interact at this stage actually among ourselves and answer our questions ourselves and talk more. Professor Mberi, you are bombarding us with too many questions. You may wish to give us some learning points. Professor Benebe, you've not said anything. Meanwhile, you are one of the movers of this meeting.
Let Mbachu give us a downloadable TO. I'm protesting.
Exactly.
Very important. Okay, I'm a provost want to say something. Okay.
When you send it to him, it will become a prayer.
Professor Ige, your hand is up. You want to talk to us?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I want to appreciate the faculty for
organizing this workshop. Like the presenter said, he's not going to reinvent the wheel. He's only trying to share with us what he knows and what they do, so that we can align what we do with best global standard and practices. Of course, I'm a fan of improving medical education. I'm sure you all know that. That was why I did what I did again. But I want to make one or two
What's no longer clear? We're not hearing well.
Obstructed labor.
When they
Somebody
deliver the woman now, if it's obstructed, CS can walk.
Is there an obstetrician that is talking? So he has obstructed labor on his hand.
So now pediatrician go help on now, being a obstetrician.
So the population here is population that manages undergraduate medical education. Although some of us are involved in postgraduate medical education, but we know that the requirements for these various specialties are different. So let us focus on undergraduate medical education, which our students, what our students will benefit from. Then secondly, I had, maybe further lectures will take care of some of the other things I want to say, because we need to start breaking it down a little bit more. So I just want to make that point that this should be for undergraduate medical education, not necessarily postgraduate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for that. Professor Benebe, your hand is up, and you're not spoken to us today.
Well, thank you, everybody. Just to say that we appreciate you are making yourselves available for this very important phase in our efforts at improving the competency of our medical teachers. Well, I do not agree that the exercise we are doing is skewed to postgraduate or undergraduate. The assessment methods, the teaching methods, all the area we are going to cover are principles, basic principles that any person who is a teacher and a medical teacher for that should take into consideration. So I would like us to believe that exposure to basic fundamentals of medical education is beneficial at any level, whether undergraduate or postgraduate. I would also like us to see such efforts as what we need to make definite pronouncements on. The Vice Chancellor referred to the expectation of a communique at the end of the exercise. And I am very happy with that. The reason being that if we finish this exercise and it's not practicalized at the level of our undergraduate medical teaching, it means we have wasted our times. Even though some of us have been exposed to the DAE program and to some other programs on education, the essence of this exercise is for us as a faculty or as faculties producing MBBS graduates to be formally empowered to do the job as trained teachers. And by the time we come to the end of the exercise after day 3, we will see the need for our communique to contain something that will, in essence, mandate every person to have some standard exposure to medical education, certified, before being appointed to be a medical teacher. That is where we are going. So that it's not a question of somebody having knowledge to be a proficient clinician. You automatically say, okay, come and teach. I mean, there are two professions, and we need professional empowerment in medical education to be able to do it well enough to produce competency-based medical graduates. And I am happy that many people have attended this program. And I pray that everybody will stay to the end, because this is just the priming. By day 3, when we shall be doing the hands-on, we will see how beneficial the program is. So thank you, everybody, for making yourselves available for the training. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Our summary is that we will begin to require certification in education so that we'll be able to deliver competently in our teaching very soon. And the faculty is getting ready for that, setting things in place so we're able to take care of that need, which Prof has did mention. The former Emeritus Dean, Professor Glada Haneko, that will be the last one before our staff comes back. Prof. Professor Haneko.
Maybe she's...
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm still here. Good morning, professors, teachers, and colleagues. Yes, just to join others in thanking the Dean and his team for organizing this, and to thank our lecturer. I placed the question on the but it wasn't read. I was just wondering, since the aim of the exam is to, as much as possible, remove personal biases, is it not okay to introduce a short period of interaction between the two examiners before they score a particular candidate during OSCE or PACES? I'm just wondering if that will not improve the scoring and reduce bias to the risk minimum.
Should I come in here? I think it's been validated. Yeah, it's been validated that when the two examiners discuss, there's some bit of influencing. There's no doubt if you're concerned about a candidate who is unsafe, both of you agree that, look, this candidate is unsafe. But if a candidate is doing well, reasonably well, I don't think that both of you should be talking and be sharing your mark. I think that's what we call concordance, and it gives validity to the exam. So you say that independent people they will score this candidate, this score, and this score. You understand? So the thing is that if you see a very unsafe candidate who is talking completely, is very unsafe, and his interaction with the patient is really dangerous, you need to put that in the report so that that feedback will be sent to the candidate. Both of you will have the same thing, which we'll call enhanced feedback, that this candidate needs to be cancelled. But how many of you cancel candidates who come and really perform very badly? It is so important because we are dealing with patient safety here. And we're dealing with doctors that were training that will go and work in different parts of the country. Some will go to comprehensive health centers and work independently. And so, of course, you can't solve all the bad doctors in the country, but you put some guardrails in place to be able to deal with that. I think that's my take on it.
All right, thank you very much, Prof, and welcome back.
Can you see my slides?
Yeah, we can see your slide. We are ready for you, sir.
Okay.
So we are onto feedback and mentorship.
Yes.
By Professor Ibi Rikosoma. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So this is, there are two aspects to it that I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about feedback first, and then I'll talk about mentorship, an essential tool to learning. Sometimes we misunderstand what feedbacks are. And sometimes we think that we're not supposed to give feedback. Even students are not supposed to give us feedback. And sometimes we misunderstand what mentorship is, because mentorship in our culture may be because of hierarchical, that this person is supposed to make me. So the mentee does nothing. The mentor is one that tells you go and do this, you go and do that, and all that. So I'm going to try and remove all those myths, my own understanding and what we do here, and what is done all over the world, especially in the West. So I'll just introduce the topic and understand the definition of feedback, how important feedback, appropriate different feedback models, practical points, and definition of mentoring. What is mentoring in medical education? So I love this. I got it from the internet. We said we all need people who give us feedback. That's how we improve. I'm sure you all agree with me that feedbacks are so important. I'll tell you, I just put a case for you. I've been a consultant for as a renal consultant, been a consultant for close to 30 years. And I saw a patient who 3 years ago, she was 19, and then she disappeared from my radar, and she now appeared with a kidney function of 20%. Now, the first time I met her, she required a kidney biopsy, but the girl, a teenager, she just disappeared. I didn't make any effort. I just said, well, she did not. She's canceled my clinic 4 times. And the alarm bells were not ringing in my head that I should, because she's a teenager, I should do something more. So she now, our GP now wrote to me that, look, our kidney function is 20%. That raised alarm. I got the parents involved and got a meeting. I think she was scared about the biopsy, which perhaps I did not explain at all. And we eventually persuaded her to do a biopsy. It turned out that she had granulomatous interstitial nephritis. And her kidney function is 18% now. So we started treating her with steroids and things, and kidney function is improving. In our biopsy meeting, I said, look, I raised my hand. This is a missed opportunity. People are saying I do. I said, I think I do. Because as a teenager, if I have a teenage daughter, I know the way I feel. So I thought that I should have done a bit more. And I got the feedback from the clinical director that, and this was a lesson that I learned. I've been a consultant for close to 30 years. So it doesn't matter what level you are. Feedback is important that we can improve. So that has changed my. As I keep thinking of it, I feel terribly bad. Of course, nobody will say that. It was she that was not coming. It's not my negligence, but I just felt that I would have done more in this case. So, medical education definition of feedback is a process whereby learners obtain information about their work in order to appreciate the similarities between the appropriate standards for any work and the qualities of the work itself in order to generate improved work. This is just a general, this is by Mollenberg in 2013, talking about AI education and all that. So the idea of providing feedback is not novel. This has been in the times of Hippocrates and other prominent Greek physicians. And in the last, in this millennium, there has been a shift of emphasis from trainer-based to a learner-based model, which aligns learners' perspectives in feedback conversations. And so that's something that we should take on board. So I just put this cartoon here. So it's improved. It's not about witch hunting. It's not about. I mean, I was in the biopsy meeting, and when they put it, I said that I think one should have done more. So at the end of the day, it's something that is a feedback. When they were saying that, I think she now attends the global nephritis clinic, and so I mean that's not my area of expertise, but the lead there, one professor was just saying you're a sinner and all that. So so it was for me, I've done more. So I just gave that example. This is a personal experience that is just about 3 weeks ago. So we need to be better. We need to, we should be able to take negative, feedbacks with a lot of grace. So that is very important. So it's to improve us. So it's not there. So if we take our mind back to, this is Miller's level of competence. So knows are should. At every level, you need a feedback, knowledge, competence, performance, and action. So even if you look at the learning experience, you can see that this is Club's learning cycle, which I showed to you in my first teaching, was that there's concrete experience, having an experience, review, reflecting on the experience, and concluding learning from the experience, and planning and trying out what you have learned. And so this is a learning cycle, and it can embed feedback into this learning cycle. So if you remember, I put the Maslow's theory of learning, where somebody goes from unconscious incompetence to consciously competent. You can put feedback into that, embed feedback into that learning model. So the learner stage, unconsciously incompetent, help learners identify weaknesses and plan for improvement. That is at that level when they come in. When they start the medical, probably clinical training or whatever. Conscious incompetence help learners identify and refine needed skills and knowledge. Consciously competent, which is provide encouragement and opportunities for reflection to integrate skills. So look at that. Consciously competent, unconsciously competent, we'll build on strengths and identify areas. Most of us belong to this group. So we'll build on our strengths and identify areas of continuous growth. And in fact, sometimes we may interface the consciously competent with it, where you say, provide encouragement, put this for reflection to integrate your skills or to improve your skills. I'll put it like that. So that is very important. So feedback played many roles from novice to expert. So what is the importance of feedback? So giving feedback, effective feedback is essential for medical educators to promote learning. And feedback provides learners with insights into their actions and into the effects of their action on patient care. This is why I gave that example of my own experience. So inspires goal setting and helps learners to continually improve their clinical and non-clinical performance. So you can see that even in the various domains, doctor as a scientist, doctor as a practitioner, doctor as a professional, it will help in all those domains. So importance of feedback promotes reflection about one's learning or performance, and that's what we call real reflective learning. I've been privileged to be an academic advisor for the allocation of students to us, 6 students to us through their clinical years. So I have a bunch of 5 students I'm looking after now. So they have a portfolio. So and that portfolio, you have reflective learning. So when they go to the world, they write about their reflection on the case they've seen and what they've learned and actions they want to take about our learning. So it helps to identify the gaps in learning or performance and provides an educational intervention, enhances learning and contributes to the growth of the students and teachers. It helps to reinforce good performance, reduce performance and errors. So that is Ugochi, could you please mute yourself? So that helps to reinforce good performance and reduce repeated performance errors. So, well, like somebody said, that medicine is a continuous learning process. I have learned. I mean, throughout my career as a renal physician, I've seen few granulomatous interstitial nephritis. Very few. So that was a real learning process, So it is something that we should embrace, no matter our level, no matter how senior we are as doctors. So I love Judy McKean's feedback cycle, which is what Judy McKean is a medical educator in one of our universities in the UK, and she's actually not a medic. And also, so she works in the medical school, but she evaluates discover issues. I mean, the references there. I put the reference at the end of this talk, so you can look at it. Discover issues, self-discover, assisted recovery, analyze causes and consequences, create options and solutions. Commit to action, evaluate performance. It's a cycle. So it's something that we should all embrace. So what are the models for giving feedback? Narizum Qureshi, he published this in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology in 2017. It's a consultant obstetrician in the UK, in one of the hospitals. So I got this paper. It was very interesting. That this is he did this. It's a very well-known figure in medical education. So the first model of feedback is the simplest of all the models. The trainer takes a learner chronologically through an event and gives feedback in each step as required. This could be useful in one-to-one and short feedback sessions, but can be impractical for long sessions. So it is, the trainer takes the learner chronologically through an event. So you come and carry the task, you examine the abdomen. So it takes you from the inspection. So you should have done this, you should have done that. So it's good for a one-to-one, but it's not good for long sessions or group feedbacks. So the next one is sandwich feedback. So sandwich feedback is a method of feedback where positive feedback serves as a cushion to negative feedback. So you give the person, well, this is where you've done very well, but you should improve in this area. And finally, he said you end with a high note of encouragement. So that's the sandwich model. And we'll probably be performing this, but we need to be, it should be something that we should be doing, especially when students are very poor. So we know that we have a high volume number of students. I'll tell you that in Manchester, the biggest medical school, we have about 2,000 medical students. So, but it is done very effectively. So the next one is Pendleton's rules. This was in 1984. You check the learner once, and once it's ready for feedback, let the learner give comments, background to the material that is being assessed. Then the learner states what was done well. So you tell them, so what do you think is done well in this situation? They'll tell you. The learner states what was done well. The learner states what could have been improved. So we say, how do you improve? So it's like the learner tells you this, and then the learner states how it could be improved. Then now both of you now decide on action plan based on the improvement areas. And then you now have that action plan revisited. So that is the Pendleton's rules. The LOBA is agenda-led outcomes-based analysis. This is used in debriefing. Agenda asks the learner to highlight problem areas, define outcomes. What do we want to achieve? So they listen to the learner's thoughts and feelings and get him or her to make suggestions about how things could get better. So you can just get a group of students, probably 5 students who are in your group, or say, okay, so ask the learner to highlight problem areas. What are the areas in this particular learning experience? So define the outcomes. At the end of this learning experience, this is what you're supposed to do. So they listen to the learner's thoughts and feelings, then involve the group in the problem solution. Somebody says, so this is the way we're going to go step by step. So facilitator then makes suggestions and generalizes the learning, and then check everyone happy that the agenda is covered and feedback appropriate. So the final one is the set go, Chowdhury and Carlo. This is Nigerian, 2004, University of Bristol. So in this case, you say what you saw, especially in observational things. What else did you see? What happened next? So if you say examine the patient who has chronic liver disease, just giving that as an example, or somebody who has kidney transplant. I mean, you see a scar on the on the right line or some, or on the left line or something. So you now say that, so what else did you see? You might see scars of PD, catheter, you might see scars of, so what do you think? Reflect back to the learner. So what happened next? So what do you think? Reflect back to the learner. What goals were you trying to achieve? So, any of us allowed to achieve goals, suggestions regarding skills and yourself. So that is just set goals. The set goal is that they are the one that determines what is going on, and then you will observe behaviors and actions, emphasize self-reflection encouraged, goal-based learning encouraged. Good feedback should be prompted. This is a mnemonic, so precise with attention to the specific, relevant to practice, outcome-based with clear aims, measurable where improvement can be assessed, possible and attainable, time determined, a clear period to achieve the outcomes, encouraging and constructive and descriptive. So what are the common mistakes here? In giving feedback, giving feedback when it's not appropriate, bringing up previous mistakes, focusing on personality rather than learning, not keeping it private, especially for negative feedbacks, too many messages for them to work on, giving feedback when you're angry, provide immediate feedback in case of serious adverse events. I've had cases where there has been mortality. I mean, we dealt with it very professionally, but I think the problem is cultural thing. I mean, you have to really deal with it professionally here in the UK. Otherwise, you that is getting involved in that, I mean, if it's your team, you may be in trouble. So why are we failing in giving feedback? I mean, this is something not just in Nigeria, even in the UK. Probably recently, they just sent all of us emails that some medical students have complained of bullying in the wards. So they've sent a very lengthy email from the university. Medical students that were in placements, they were being bullied by consultants. And so that has been brought to the knowledge of the students, of the university. And the university has brought out a very strong memo on that. We've all been sent emails. So job ability of learners to reflect, influence of emotional reaction to feedback, ability of learners to reflect. I mean, sometimes we feel, what are we failing at all? And so you will say that lack of mental cognitive capacity. So what are the practical tips? Give an effective, concentrate on the task, not the person. Be specific, be realistic, own the feedback. Remember that feedback is merely your opinion, and be timely about it. What are you will receive the feedback, listen to the feedback given, be aware of your responses, avoid putting up barriers, be open, understand the message, if you are before responding to feedback, reflect, and decide what to do. So I just want to say that these two topics are different topics. I always give them differently, but I have to match this to just getting the basics of them. So I need extra 10 minutes. I need some 5 minutes added to that. So definition of mentoring. Mentoring is a relationship. Mentoring is between two people, the mentor and the mentee. The aim of mentoring is to support and develop an individual in their professional development and personal well-being. So, and it's positive, it's wisdom and all that. It's not about somebody carrying your bag. Anytime you come or send a message around or do things for them, they will be on the driving seat. They tell you the objectives and they will chart their course. So why is this in medical education? Mentoring is a key part of medical education. Helps students develop the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in their careers. Mentors can help students set goals, develop professional skills, and improve their well-being. So should be mentee-centered, focus on the mentee's agenda, not your own agenda. Mentors should manage proactively the mentee's goals and objectives while the mentee takes the driver's seat. So this is what it is: direction, training, support, motivation, goals, success. So at the end of the day, the take-home is that it's not about the mentor, it's about the mentee. Manage proactively the mentee's goals and objectives while the mentee takes the driving seat. So sometimes we confuse mentoring and coaching. There are two different things. Coaching improves job performance or skills. Mentoring support and guide personal career growth. So it's different. There's a difference between educational supervisor and clinical supervisor. Education is concerned about career development. Coach directs learning, mentee is in charge of learning. agrees to accept coaching, maybe not be voluntary. So coaching may be assistance because you're coaching them how to suture a wound. Both mentor and mentee are volunteers. They volunteer to have this. Immediate problems and learning opportunities, long-term personal development. So you can see a student from year one and see them through their medical training. Role, focus on telling with appropriate feedback and focus on listening, behavioral role model, make suggestions and connections. It's a longer-term relationship. So what are its benefits? Improve satisfaction. Mentoring can help students feel more satisfied with their training. Career success. Mentoring can help students develop the skills and knowledge they need for a successful career. Can reduce burnout so that you can reduce the kind of despair. Mentoring can help reduce burnout, which can lead to medical errors and workforce turnover. So what does a mentor do? So what do? You set the goals, you provide the guidance, you share the knowledge. So mentors share their clinical knowledge and experience with students, develop skills. Mentors help students develop skills like communication, teamwork, and prioritization. Of course, you're going to see their mental and physical well-being. And so it's a long-term relationship. So who can be a mentor? Consultants, experienced peers, senior registrars can mentor students, peers can mentor students and residents. Within the clinical space or medical space. So 4 aspects of mentoring, when you're embarking on a mentoring relation, keep these 4 elements in mind. Go on and build trust. First and foremost, there must be trust between the mentee and mentor. Establish goals and share lessons learned. Of course, I share my lessons that I've learned with my mentees. Take action, celebrate successes. You can go out for a drink or you can meet up. So steps, exploration, involves fact-finding and clarify the mentee's goals. New understanding, the mentee is encouraged to reflect and priorities established. Constructive feedback may also be given, and this should facilitate the mentee to see things in a different way. And that's why feedbacks are embedded into mentoring. Then action plan revisited, set specific objectives to achieve their goals with the mentor's encouragement. So what are the expectations of the mentee? The mentee goes from being a passive learner to an active learner who directs the process. Please don't make your mentee a passive learner. Don't be telling them what to do. Give you this paper, go and. You have to tell them, you go and look for the paper and bring it to me. I did on this topic, go and bring it to me. Not give them this, you go and do this, and I want you to go and write this specifically. But you tell them what is your thinking about this. So they need to be engaging. The mentee need empathy, a core soft skill, or as I call it, core skills. So they've set SMART objectives. I'm sure all of you know what SMART is: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. So what to look for in a mentor like you and me: communication skills, active listener, a good mentor listens without interrupting, understanding your perspective, so people just talk down on other people. Now, effective communication, a good mentor uses communication tools to share ideas and provide feedback. Feedback, those 2 key things are so important. Constructive feedback, honest feedback. A good mentor is honest and candid and shares their own failures and successes. And a good mentor can give feedback that helps the mentee improve. So these are the characteristics: passion for developing others, willing to be challenged, genuinely interested in others, non-judgmental, effective listener, provide constructive feedback. So you can see feedback is embedded in mentoring. But the key, so 2 things I'm very interested in, or 3 things: willing to be challenged, genuinely interested in others, and non-judgmental. You must be an effective listener. So my strategy is in mentoring, undergraduate and postgraduate medical education, because I've been with doing several roles in leadership, in terms of dealing with even trainees that are in trouble. Set regular mentoring meetings. The mentoring relationship is one of the most mutual trust and respect. The mentoring conversation may be informal, but treat the overall arrangement with formality and professionalism. Encourage discussion that must be open and honest. It's better to know upfront and build this sort of understanding rather than have it hurt the relationship. I've learned that. I was mentoring somebody who did something different than what we did. So sometimes we learn from that and do it better with others. build sustainable improvements and not quick fixes or immediate answers to problems. So it's a process and it's a lifelong development all during that period of training. So challenges is number one, I'm wrapping up now. Unrealistic expectations can affect the relationship. So you need to set out the SMART goals and objectives. Stepping out of boundary with the mentor and define clear boundaries to the relationship. Don't make the issue over familiarity and all that. That could ruin a relationship. Becoming dependent on the mentor. The mentee should not be dependent on the mentor. Being overtly over familiar with the mentor, reacting emotionally to constructive feedback. This could be challenging. And I've experienced it before. So what are the learning points? Yeah. So set SMART objectives or goals. That's what I've said before. Be sure to get a good mentor who is interested in professional development, non-judgmental. Be open to constructive feedback. The mentee should be open to that. Learn to be in the driving seat and navigate their goals and objectives. Be professional and be aware of societal, cultural, and individual norms, values, and beliefs. So when you're dealing with this kind of situation, you need to be aware of all these things because it could ruin a relationship. So I think those are the things about mentoring and feedback. If it's done properly, it really expands. I've had the opportunity of having a good mentor who sadly died during the COVID, Professor Donoghue, who is the Czar of nephrology in the UK. He passed on during the I benefited a lot. There were challenges in our relationship, but he made my nephrology career in the UK. So this is further reading, for you, and I'm willing to get any questions.
Okay, you just unmuted me now. Thank you very much. So I'd like to join my dean in thanking Professor Osoma, the respected teacher in medical education. Prof, thank you for giving us your time. We know you're a busy person. So we are onto the section of questions, reflection, and then also Google message and feedback. Maybe I can answer that, but before we do that, I would like to remind us what we did today. We look at three factors, put us through things that will improve learning, that will affect learning, that will help us to deliver learning, and then help our students to learn. These are assessment, feedback, and mentorship. We spend a lot of time in assessment, and when practical, always practical. Learning itself, that is the
torsion from surgery.
Of learning. So we are three aspects of learning. And we did note that assessment should to discriminate learners, different kind of learners, the exceptional ones, the borderline, and those who need improvement or who we usually say they failed, so that the idea is for them to improve and do better. We should be able to select appropriate questions, the learning or training, the support and appraisal for examiners and assessors. So those who assess should be trained so that they can do proper assessment. We know in our university that teaching and assessment are two critical things we cannot mix, and we won't have any permission to mix them in the training of students. We looked at OSCE. We are used to checklists. Many people have highlighted issue of global rating, which Prof has emphasized, and encourage us to combine the two so that we can eliminate the disadvantage and the merit in each of them and then maximize their benefit. And we saw that every OSCE need a committee to set OSCE, look at it, and then review it and as often as possible. And then OSCE or assessment should incorporate feedback to the student, and then feedback from the student or the candidate is a two-way thing to help improve our delivery of learning to our students. If we look at mentorship and what it is that candidates or students should drive to a mentorship for, not the traditional means of passing down the instruction. We should help them set goals, set objectives, and then learning methods, more like a supervisory role in mentorship. So we believe that we'll get this live on Prof, and the recordings are there so that we can look at it again. We want to see improvement in what we do when we go to the next round of assessment. There's an improvement in the way we assess our students, and then every assessment should influence our teaching and certainly the result of curriculum. Thank you very much. Dean, I will call upon you to anchor the next and last section, questions, reflection. There are still questions in the chat box that people ask. Then if you're ready, I will step aside for you to complete this section.
Yes, that's a very good question. I'll just liken it. Let me just explain something. I'll just liken it to two other terminologies we use in postgraduate training, which is educational supervisor and clinical supervisor. Now, clinical supervisor is interested in the skills acquisition. The educational supervisor is one who looks at the career development. Is it skills? Is it research the person is interested in? Is it audits or whatever they want to do? They want to do an intercalated degree or something that will improve their development. Now, to answer that question, in terms of mentoring is like an educational supervisor. So you can mentor anybody from a department, from anybody outside your department, because the principles are the same. Because what you're doing there is career development. So the person sets objectives. Okay, in 2026 November, I'm going to write the part 1 obstetrics and gynecology exam, and after that, I'll go into the last part of my training. So that's an objective. And so during that period, I would like to do, you want to carry out an audit within your department, or quality improvement project. So you now give yourself a timeline. So you now do that. Then you now talk about courses you want. And then the mentor would now suggest to say that, have you had any skills on quality improvement? So do you want to go to those, any course of quality improvement? And you go there and come back, and now tell them, and then I'll tell you their learning points in those things, whether that will help them to be able to carry out a successful quality improvement. So it's almost a kind of getting both generic skills and non-generic skills. So or somebody finishing their part 2, so they want to get some skills in management. So they come and tell you this and all that. So you direct them and all that. So the answer is you can get somebody from another department. So it's mainly an educational advancement and career development in the mentor relationship. Yeah. Yes, that's a very good question. So if you have a mentor and a mentee, that's it. From the day one, you need to be able to draw boundaries. You need to be able to draw areas that because sometimes there could be some emotional baggage that it may have the mentee. So if that's the case, it may be possible that it may not be the person that will be able to help that particular trainee or student. You can suggest somebody else and all that. So one thing I will advise is that you don't take things personal. You must be able to understand where is this coming from, why is there this breakdown in the relationship. It's possible that there have been boundaries have been crossed and all that. So those things have to be identified, and it is perfectly acceptable to say that this relationship is not working, so somebody else can be able to help. So, and that's something that we should not, but main message here, you should not take it personal. And all that. Thank you. So sorry. Yeah, somebody asked a question about opposite sex or something, that's a mentee. I don't know whether you saw that question in there. Can you just read it for me? Because I can't. I just saw it briefly and I left. Mentee, yeah. Yes, go on. All right. So the fact that first of all, the first point I want to say that I don't see any problem with opposite sex. I think it's just the way you need to. That's something you need to create the boundaries. The boundaries should be professional, and that's why you want to teach the students from day one in medical school that you train them as a doctor, train them as a practitioner, and train them as a professional. So that example should be expressed from your relationship with your mentee. So you have to make it. I don't give for example, you want to meet up with a female student, and you want to meet up in a discreet place, you have to make it so that the person comes to the faculty, sees your faculty secretary, or comes to the department, and make it in such a way that it is a very professional meeting. And you must lay down the boundaries, because sometimes that could be misinterpreted, I'll tell you. And so you will need to make it like I've had like my students. I'm an academic advisor to at least 4 of them are females. So what I did was that if they are meeting me, they go through the admin secretary to be able to book a time slot. And then if I'm going to see them face to face, that the room is booked by the secretary, by the admin secretary, who books the room, and then we'll meet. So I don't, then if we're going to meet online, the link is sent by, if they don't have resources, I can send the link, but it's all through an official channel. So it doesn't, the relationship is not misinterpreted. You got to look after yourself. If you're a male colleague, you got to look after, and so female colleague too will also look after, have to put those boundaries. So that it doesn't bring problems. So in terms of getting married, it has nothing to do with you if you're a male. Somebody, if you're a female, you're getting married. It's a professional relationship. That's it. So it doesn't really make any difference. That's what I would say.
We have the provost of Shanahan University with us. So.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. I really want to continue to appreciate our lecturer, Professor Eriko Sima. It has been wonderful listening to your presentation. I simply endorse the vote of thanks and the appreciations already released by the Dean. I want to let us know that the program continues tomorrow to end on day 3. A cursory look at the attendance gives us an impressive kind of attendance for our usual kind of, participation in workshop activities. The average is 100, and we plan for 100. So the average participation and attendance is 100. So we will say we have a good attendance to the workshop. And we are very hopeful that at the end of the day, we will achieve the goal, the main goal of improving our competence in medical education. We have recording of the entire process, and we will continue to remind ourselves of whatever we are learning today, tomorrow, and the next. I will also like to implore all of us to be available tomorrow for tomorrow's lecture. And more importantly, day 3, that is going to be hands-on. We will not tolerate people leaving and coming and leaving and coming. We will prefer that people will make up their mind to simply be present and stay on. because it causes some distractions when people go and come. I think we have had a wonderful time listening to our lecturer. He does this the way that he alone can do it. And that's why we had to insist on his coming to, empower all of us, not just the few of us that are benefiting from, the program in a more formal manner. So thank you again, Professor Eriko Sima. You have done noble by coming, and God will surely bless you abundantly. Thank you, everybody. We expect all tomorrow.
Any lunch, please. Any lunch, please. Any lunch, please.
Yes, the lunch will be sent through WhatsApp. So just return to your WhatsApp platform and the lunch will be waiting for you.
Bro, this one is not acceptable.
Not an email. Not an email this time.
That will be psychiatric lunch, yo.
Not an email.
If your lunch arrangement is not acceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
The lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, lecturer. Thank you, the provost. Appreciate the dean, everyone.
Thank you.
And have a lovely day.
So a short closing prayer, please. A short closing prayer, please. A short closing prayer, please. Our Father and our God, we thank you for the privilege of life. We thank you for having been with us in the course of today's exercise. We pray that you will continue to enlighten our understanding of our responsibilities towards our learners, towards our students regarding medical education. We pray that as we return tomorrow, you will also be with us tomorrow. Thank you, our Father and our God. Thank you for our lecturer. May you keep him where he is and grant him the benefits of divine health and divine provisions by virtue of the sacrifice he is making to get us empowered. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Please, when is tomorrow's session starting, please?
The same 9:30.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
6 p.m.
9:30 a.m.
Okay. Okay, evening. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow's
That's
one is
great.
evening.
That's great because tomorrow morning we have the PG board meeting, and I was just thinking how to do both of them. Okay, thank you.
Yes, tomorrow is evening.
All right.
The same link.
Okay, the same link. Okay. Thank you.